we'll wait, see if we can get a few people in here, and then we'll begin the show.
Is he gonna be? Is he gonna be joining tonight? Is he gonna be listening?
He is home, so I wouldn't be surprised if he is in here very shortly. I was actually surprised he didn't jump in. So this is just a website that we log into,
Mm-hmm.
and I creep him out a lot of times when we start the stream because I'll just like jump into it because he sends me a link, but I'll just jump into it because I have access to it.
Right on.
So a lot of times I will just do that one.
Ooh,
We'll do this one. This one's a little bit better. Um, so yeah, we'll
that
literally
was up
do
close and
that.
personal right there.
Oh yeah, we can make people dizzy. You'd be surprised some of the buttons I have control of here, but looks like we already had 3 people jump on. That's awesome from the American Angler Outdoors website. Actually, it looks like the
Ooh.
Facebook page. So I guess we'll start it off. I want to say welcome everybody to the Tuesday Night Live. As you can tell, Al is not here. He is recovering from surgery. I have talked to him today and been keeping up with him. He's doing well, just sore and trying to recover and relax. So he left me in charge. So you can tell that he was really not in sane mind because he left me in charge of the ship. But what I wanted to do here is I wanted to bring a previous guest back on because we had such a good conversation the last time he was on here. And honestly, I just need someone to bounce off of and talk about fishing. So this episode is going to be basically just us talking fishing. If anybody has any questions about the network, if anybody has any questions about fishing, there he is. There's the
There's
man in
Al.
the chat.
Right.
If anybody has any questions or want to give input, this is going to be more interactive live stream, more of a guest type show. And personally, I'm kind of jumping out ahead of things we've talked about, but I do plan on doing all of my personal live streams from my channel are now going to flow through the American Angler Outdoors as well as my channel. We're going to be combining those two. So any of my interviews are also going to be streamed on all of these sites that you guys are currently on. It's just something I wanted to do is kind of exclusive content to the American Angler. I am streaming it on my channel, but that's more for crowd participation than anything. But all my lives are gonna flow through here, and then we'll probably post them up on the Roku app and all the sites as well. Al, how you feeling, buddy? I see you're in the chat there. I know he said he was in pain earlier, but he couldn't keep himself away from listening to us talk about fishing.
Hoping he's feeling better here soon now.
So you got onto, was that a brook trout? Is that what you caught? That picture you sent me?
No, the one I sent you the other day, yesterday, was a rainbow.
That's a rainbow. Okay.
Yeah, that was a rainbow.
It was.
Really
It
hoping
looked
it
a
was
little. It was really dark. That's why I was surprised. Like it kind of looked like a. It kind of looked like a big brookie, but I guess it rainbow is.
Yeah, I was really. That's the one that I haven't caught yet. I've caught rainbow, I've caught rainbow and brown so far this weekend. Haven't got in any brook trout, so hopefully I can find some of them either tomorrow or the next day before I head back to Alabama.
Yeah, what's funny is it's been a really long time since I've caught a brook trout. Rainbow, I've only caught one, and it's actually really so. Of the species I've caught them in non-traditional ways. So the first brown I ever caught was on a Kitech trying to fish for bass last year.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I was fishing the edge of milfoil. I don't know what the hell he was doing in there. It was literally this inlet. So there's a campground on the back side of this lake where I fish, and that the bay that this campground is in is just milfoil. It's sand and milfoil everywhere. And I was like, I'm gonna go in here and try to get me a largemouth. So I'm working the point where the channel comes in, and I hook into this fish, and I'm like, oh, this has got to be a pike. Or the way it was fighting, I'm like, this is definitely not a bass. And I ended up boat flipping a freaking brown because I had no idea.
Right.
And he had to freaking, I had caught him on a 3.5 Kitech of all things. But I mean, I guess kind of makes sense.
Right.
I was trying to fish for bass. The only time I've ever caught a walleye was trolling on Lake Ontario.
Ooh.
With Howie flies.
Okay.
For whatever reason. So I've caught a lot of species the wrong way. I caught the lake trout this year. I've caught a lot of lake trout in my life.
Yeah, you and your dad caught those lake trout, yes.
Yeah, and it's funny because again, I mean, I've caught lake trout the traditional way. I mean, I've been on the big boat, trolling and stuff like that. But we were catching them like dragging lipless crankbaits behind our kayaks.
Nice.
Like it
But see,
works.
I mean, like when I lived in Ohio, we would go fishing for steelhead,
Okay, yeah.
and we fished a river just off of the of Lake Erie, and we wasn't very far up in there, and I was catching steelhead on lipless crankbaits, and the guys at the sporting goods shop that I buy my stuff from, I went in there and I told them I needed more because the steelhead just destroyed my lipless,
Yep.
and they couldn't believe that I'm catching steelhead on a lipless crankbait. So I mean, it kind of makes sense if you're catching lake trout
It's
on
what's
a lipless
funny
too.
about the lipless crankbait is I never appreciated it until about halfway through last year. And I think it's because I used to have this weird interpretation. So you see all these guys on YouTube and they talk about like offshore fishing. And
Hmm.
they're like, oh, you need to use a 6XD, an 8XD deep diver, a Berkeley dredger, like all these deep diving crankbaits, right?
Right.
I have never caught a freaking fish on a deep diving crankbait ever. But you give me a 3/4 or a half ounce lipless, you
Hmm.
whip that thing, you just bomb cast that thing as far as you can. You let it sink, yo it a couple of times, and slow roll it back. It's
Hmm.
getting just as deep as that deep diver, if not deeper, because it'll go all the way to the bottom. And you can rip it through the grass a hell of a lot easier because if you've ever fished one of those 6XDs in a kayak,
Hmm.
what people don't realize about kayak fishing with those things is you're pulling towards the bait when you
Exactly.
reel those things in. They pull so hard that you're going with the bait.
Yep.
And when they hit milfoil or they hit grass, they're there.
Hmm.
You have to like get over it and really crank to get that thing out of there. So I pretty much replace deep diving baits with a lipless, but I get so much bycatch. I've caught catfish on lipless crankbaits.
Oh yes, yes. So did I. Yeah.
Like it's the funniest thing. You get these weird, like you just get all of these different catches on the stuff, and it's not like you would expect it. But if you think about it, it's a small profile. It's a tight wobble.
Hmm.
Most of them have BBs or rattles on them.
Yep.
So it's kind of a small bait fish. It's kind of like a Kitech. It's the same thing. That's probably my favorite bait is like a Kitech or a small swim bait,
Hmm.
like a paddle tail, because it looks natural, it's unintrusive, and every species eats it. So I think that's why I like the lipless so much. But what were you fishing for the rainbows with? Were you fly fishing?
We're fly fishing.
Okay,
Like I told I said before, my son went out to Montana. He's a fly fishing guide and that. So
gotcha.
he got me into this whole fly fishing world now, and I mean it's just a blast to know. And I'm fishing Pennsylvania, so these are stocked. Most of them are stock trout. Now, like I said, if we go
Okay.
after the brooks, they're going to be native.
Yep.
But to be able to trick a fish into hitting something that they think is food that you tied, I mean, that just brings everything, full circle for me. I mean, it's just awesome. It's just amazing.
It's funny that you say that because literally, um, I have a guest coming on Thursday. Kind of shameless plug here, but um, the guy who I have coming on Thursday on my channel, he makes custom baits,
Okay.
and I had the same conversation with him yesterday. Was um, it was a situation where I was like, I make soft plastics, like I pour my own stuff through like dual molds and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
it was mostly because I got into it because I couldn't get green pumpkin worms and I couldn't get June bug worms because COVID killed the supply chain and it's just barely recovering.
Right.
Like it's
Yep.
real. There's baits that are still back ordered from COVID.
Mm.
Like you just can't get them. So I started making my own because I liked green pumpkin Kitex too, and I couldn't
Hmm.
get them. You couldn't freaking buy them at any store within 2 hour drive of my house. So I just started making my own. And there's just something. It's the same thing with like the fly fishing world is there's just something so gratifying about catching any fish, a perch, a
Oh,
rock bass. It doesn't matter.
don't
When you
matter.
hook a fish and you pull it in and you go, that worked. Cool. Like, you have this like envisionment of what you think the bait's going to look like in the water. It almost never looks like that in the water, but then you get out there and you fish it and you catch something with it and you're like, I did that. Like, that was
Right.
me. I created that. I caught fish with that. It just adds another level to being on the water. I think that's honestly, and I don't know if I can't speak for everybody, but I don't know very many fishermen that aren't tinkerers, whether it's with their gear, their bait customization. Like,
Well,
there's a
I
lot
think
of
they
tinkering in
all
the
are
sport.
because even if you buy like a 3.5 inch, and depending on what you're using it on, you may cut an inch off of it
Yep.
to fit that, to make that profile the way that you want it specific or the way you think it should look. So even
Right.
even your soft plastics, guys are customizing those, or they're cutting on their spinner baits, or even on their chatterbaits, they're cutting the
Yep.
skirts off there to give it a different look, or adding, people have the markers now where you buy a certain color and you color the tail, or you
Yep.
color the skirts, so everybody, yeah.
Thank God for the markers.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's come in handy. Come in
Dude,
handy
I've
big
got
time.
I've got a bin in my boat. I'll show you if you ever come up and visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dumped Berkeley power bait in there and JJ's, and let me tell you, you want some catfish bait, all you gotta do is just slop something in there, because even after I cleaned it, man, you open that thing up when it gets hot,
Oh yeah.
it will make your eyes water. Like, it's impressive, because the dip and dye that they put the garlic scent mixed with that Berkeley power bait scent and that plastic smells awful. So the markers are really nice because I can just do this and not get covered in it.
Yeah. That was the
So
one rule I had when I got my Hobie. I was like, I'm keeping everything in a bag, and it's going to
yeah,
stay over here on a pouch. It's not going to go in a bin where, yeah. So I got the shrimp sticks, the
yep,
scent that you rub on there. So I lay them down and I color it on there, and then put it back in the bag and put it back in the side
yep.
pocket so it don't go in the bottom, so it doesn't get submerged in water. And oh yeah, I try to keep all this so it doesn't give me that smell out on the
Oh
water.
yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar with kayak fishing, you have this much space. That's it. I don't care what size you've got. I don't care if it's a 14-foot kayak or a 10-foot kayak. You have, as if you're sitting in a chair right now watching this, that's how much room you have to maneuver. At the end of the day, by the time you're all rigged out, so you don't have a lot of space. One thing I'm actually doing this year is I actually had to reduce how many rods I'm bringing.
Oh yeah,
I
I've done
used to bring 8 rods. I'm bringing 7 now because of where I put my camera mount.
that. You're
I
really
can't get
limiting
to the.
yourself now.
It is. It's limiting, man. So I used to always bring 2 spinning rods. I bring one for drop shotting and then one for wacky rigging. And it's
Mhm.
because of my inability to skip with a bait caster. That's the only reason why I do that, because I can skip with a spinning rod and not have to worry about spending the next 30 minutes picking a backlash out of my freaking casting reel. I got to
Yeah.
get better at it. See, I can do it from a boat, but my kayak, it's a different maneuver. Like, you
See, no, I'm the
basically are doing
exact
a.
opposite.
Really?
I can do it from my kayak, and you put me on a boat, and I mean, I don't have the right motion down. I got to really think about it, and I got to like focus where I want it to be. But
Yep.
on my kayak, it's just second nature. I can just just sidearm it and skip it
Yep.
right in there. But when I'm on a boat, it's a different angle. I mean, it's like pitching. A baseball pitcher.
Yep.
Your delivery, for a curveball and a fastball, different areas. So it's the same thing.
Yep.
If I'm sitting down, I can put it in there. If I'm standing up, it just looks and it looks really, really bad when I
Well,
try
it
to
kind of
skip
makes
them.
sense though, because like you said, the thing about in a kayak is, in a boat you're basically casting down and flipping.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in a kayak, you're like a sidearm pitcher. You're
You're,
kind of
you're
coming
you're right
out
on the
and
water level. You're
you're
right. Yeah.
you're kind of skipping it like you do a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who doesn't know what meaning, basically you take a bait and you essentially are casting it only a few feet in front of you, but you're doing it like you would throw a skipping stone where it bounces across. And the purpose of that is mostly to get it under something. Usually you're trying to do that to get it under a dock, under a lay down, or up against some sort of cover that you don't want to arc it because it's going to get hung up if you do that. I actually skip a lot even in open water because I sometimes feel like it's less intrusive. You don't get that big splash. So I like sometimes when I'm just casting up against like even like lily pads where I could easily just, flip it in there, I'll sometimes skip it to the lily pads because I feel like you don't get that big like splash or plunk sound when it hits. It just kind of shows up.
Right.
And it kind of takes the little bit of the fear element out for those bass. But yeah, so literally I had to take one rod out because where I wanted to get a different angle, because what happened to me last year was I had a lot of crap happen right here. Like right here in the water where like you can see my hand disappeared.
Right.
So what I wanted to do is get a camera. My new GoPro is basically here. So it's kind of casting across me.
Right.
So stuff that happens next to me, I can get on film because there's been so many times that I've reached down to grab a fish and had another bass come up. Or I had a freaking loon one day that was playing tag with me. Like this thing followed me across this whole lake. It was the weirdest freaking experience ever. So scared the shit out of me.
I can imagine.
Because the first time I saw it, I was just fishing. I was just casting and reeling. And then this big flash goes under my kayak. And I'm like, whoa, what was that? And then it did it again. And I'm thinking, it was like the side of it. And I was like, is that a bass? What the hell is this thing? And then it like surfaced like a submarine. Like,
oh my.
And I'm like, oh, it's a loon. Okay. So then I go to the next spot. Comes again, and every time he would dive under the front of my kayak and he would just barely tick it and keep going. I think I was playing tag. I think he thought I knew where the fish were, so he was following me to find his meal.
Yeah, he was.
I honestly think I think because there's a campground near this body of water, and I have a feeling that this loon has just figured out that humans can do the work for it and figure out where the bait is.
He was looking for you to bring it in for him.
And I literally want the entire circumference of this whole body of water. And every time I stopped and sat and fished an area, he shortly later came in, would tag my boat, and go through. And it was just like, but I couldn't get it on camera because my camera used to be back here. So I couldn't get any. There was no way to get any side angle.
Yeah.
Whereas if my camera's here, I could just spin it, point it at the water, and I would have got him swimming through.
Right.
I had no way of getting like an angle that would cover that. And there's been so many. I think honestly, what's funny about content creation, to be fair, is that like sometimes the best content's not even fishing.
It's everything else going around.
Dumb crap that happens around you.
Yep.
Again, the other thing I wish I got in that same body of water is I had a bald eagle, like National Geographic style, pluck a trout off the lake right next to me.
Really?
So close to me, I felt like the wind from his. I didn't even know. So I'm an idiot. I'm fishing at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and as a trout fisherman, you can appreciate this. So it was like daylight, like sun's just hitting the water.
Right.
This is a stocked pond, so these are all stocker trout. So they're hitting all them freaking bugs and everything on the surface. They're just they're schooling. Like there's literally you could see the water just swirling. They're just they're hanging out in their packs with their buddies, and they're just picking bugs and everything that's on the surface, right?
Right.
So I'm following that. Once I figured out it was trout, I'm like, I'll still fish around it because bass. Let's be honest.
They're going to eat them.
This is a buffet waiting for them. So I'm casting just outside of all these spots, and I'm just sitting in the middle. And there's like literally 3 or 4 of these like pockets of trout that are just kind of going around my kayak. They don't even care I'm there anymore because we've all kind of like we're like a symbiotic relationship now at this point because I've been there for so long. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching the blow ups, and when they start like really churning that water up, I would cast in the middle of it because I'm thinking either they're excited because of the fish or there's something below them that's freaking them out.
Right.
So they do that. I drop shot right in them. and I'm just sitting there and I'm drop shotting and I'm like focused on my line. I'm watching my line. The sun's just barely up, and then I feel woof, and I just see, and I'm like, but none of it's on camera because the damn camera wasn't at the right angle. And this thing literally, like National Geographic Talon picked up this little trout
And gone.
and apparently this is a thing because I talked to some campers when I got to shore, and they saw it happen. And apparently, like the campground literally posts the times that these eagles feed, and people just
really?
sit. They actually put they put 2 or 3 benches at the ramp, and it's across the street from the campground, and people just go down there at sunrise to watch the eagles
Oh
eat
my.
this pond.
Okay.
I had no idea. I knew there was eagles around,
Right.
but I didn't know like they like did that. And I'm in a kayak with something with a wingspan like this.
Half the
You don't
size
realize
of the
how
kayak.
big they are,
Oh yeah.
and then like could just kill me if it was bored. Like I mean, their claws they cut me. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna try to not bleed out before I get to shore. And then I was in Rhode Island, same thing. The camera, I got to get a better zooming camera. I saw swans in Rhode Island. I didn't even know swans were a New England thing. To be honest, I'd never really even thought about a swan
Mm-hmm.
because
I
I'd never
never have
seen them.
either.
We don't have them in Vermont. I thought they were
Yeah.
pool floaties.
Right.
I
just thought rich people had them.
This is like
Yeah.
it's a local body of water, right? There's camps like the whole thing is lined with camps. There's no public access except for the one boat ramp. Everything else is private houses all the way around it, right?
Okay.
And there's one little corner. It's shallow as hell. There's even literally this thing is so public that at the boat ramp there's a sign that tells you the way you're supposed to fish it. There's actually a direction map. You're supposed to fish it clockwise.
Okay.
Because they didn't want people to run into each other. Because there's rocks all in the middle and you can't really go through the middle of this one little bay.
Okay.
So you basically launch. There's a bigger section on the left and there's a littler section on the right. And the littler section on the right is shallower, but there's literally rocks in the launch area. So they basically want you to come out, go and fish it a specific direction. They have a map on the ramp that tells you the direction to fish it. So I get out there and it's super shallow, but this is Halloween weekend.
In October. Okay.
In October, so cold water. I'm thinking maybe they're going to be in there chasing bait. They're going to be feeding up.
For winter? Heck yeah.
You know? So I'm over there and I'm pre-fishing for a tournament and I'm floating around and I'm like, what the hell are those things? And all I could think of is, I don't know if you ever seen that like YouTube video of the dude in the unicorn floaty that caught the shark that the guys like picked up on the boat.
And they picked him up in the boat. Yeah.
That's literally what I thought these things were.
Okay.
You don't know how big a swan is, dude. Like they're big. They're like people size. I was expecting them like a chicken for some reason. I don't know why I thought they'd be that small.
I'm figuring the size of a Canadian goose, maybe.
Yeah, dude. No, they're way bigger, and I'm seeing
them.
They're like way across this lake, and I'm like, somebody left their freaking pool floaties out here. What the? And why would they be out here in this kind of weather, right? And then all of a sudden, like, it ducked under the water. And then surfaced, and I'm like, that's not a pool floaty. So then my dumbass, being from Vermont's like, I'm gonna go look because I'm heading over there to see what these things are. Come to find out, I've talked to other people since then. Apparently, they're like one of the most aggressive birds on the planet.
Oh, well,
so they actually started boxing me. They started boxing me out. So there was 4 of them. In a line, like ducks and all that, they were swimming in a row.
Right.
As I got closer to them, they all stopped, and I don't know. They made a noise, and then all of a sudden, one kind of started going around the front of me, one started going around the back of me, and I was like, I'm in a pedal drive, and I'm like, you know what?
These guys mean business.
I don't really want to make that. That's not the kind of content I want, is being in the hospital from a swan attack. So vacated. Yeah. And the problem is I couldn't get. I got like probably 40 yards from these things. But GoPros, if you ever used a GoPro, 40 yards might as well be 40 miles.
Right.
That fisheye lens has 0 zoom, so like everything is like that far away, no matter
Yeah.
how close you get to it. So, but that's the kind of stuff that I wanted to get the different angle for.
Mm-hmm.
And now I lost a rod holder, so now I'm trying to like pare down. Bringing it back to fishing is I'm trying to pare down because I used to always have one rod for each technique so that I don't have to change out.
Right.
So what I'm starting to do now is, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I actually cheat and I tie, I pre-tie like drop shots, so it's just the weight and line on a snap.
Oh, nah.
So I literally will take a hook
Mm-hmm.
or like a snap, or sometimes I don't even do that. I just use straight line,
Mm-hmm.
and I use like the foam you get from like Amazon packages,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll wrap it around that and put it in my tackle box. I'll
Right.
do the same thing with like a Carolina rig, and
Mm-hmm.
I've even gone as far as to make like short Texas rigs
Right.
and put them on a snap so that I can just literally, I put one of those double barrel swivel type deals
Mm-hmm.
where it's the two loops.
Yep.
So I literally just switch out, so I can go from like a wacky rig to a drop shot just by hooking a line that's already got the weight and the line and the hook already tied to it.
Right.
So I don't have to retie a whole drop shot when I'm doing a tournament. I can just clip one onto my line. You lose a little bit of sensitivity, but
you gain so much time. Yeah.
like Carolina rig, same thing. You can kind of pre-tie a pre-rigged Carolina rig and then just
That's what I
tie it
did
onto your line.
when we went down to Gulf Shores there a couple of weeks ago. I had a whole bunch of different Carolina rigs tied on that way. All I had to do, because I use the down there. I use the braided line down to a barrel swivel, and
Yep.
then I tie on my Carolina rig down there, and then I
Yep.
already had those pre-made. So, because I mean, you're going to break off whenever you're surf fishing.
You know
It's
what else
just
I bought this year? I don't know if you've used these, but I can highly recommend them. It's these Spro. They're not. They're the quick snaps.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the ones, the package doesn't actually show it, but instead of having to like actually push it and unhook it,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a paper clip. You just hook it and spin the bait around.
Oh, that's nice. That's real nice.
I'll send you. I'll actually put a link down in the video for people watching, but I'll send you a link to the ones I bought. They were not that expensive, really.
Right.
But it's literally like kind of like think a paper clip. So you like take your split ring and you just do that. You just put it on and pull down.
Right.
So you don't have to try to open the freaking. And like you were from up in the frozen tundra for a while up here. Like if I got 40-degree water right now. And that lake trout video I posted, it was snowing. You can't see it in the video, but it was snowing that day. And I'm trying to like open a 6-pound snap.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So
Yeah,
I literally
exactly.
I bought some of these because I wanted to try them out. And I mean, I boated a lake trout on one. So if I can boat a lake trout, I could boat a bass.
Oh, you would think, yeah.
So it's kind of nice because you can. But I don't use snaps on a lot of stuff, but I do use them for crankbaits. I actually use them for chatterbaits because of the action.
And there's already kind of a barrel swivel on a chatterbait as it is.
So I actually hook one to that.
Yeah, right.
Because what it does is it allows that blade a little bit more range of motion.
Right.
Because the two kind of intersect each other.
Mm-hmm.
Crankbaits I will go both ways, but a lot of the times it depends on the specific bait I'm using. Lipless I like to tie direct, but that's mostly because I'm usually stuffing those into milfoil.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had those stupid snaps open because I've caught them on freaking branches and stuff and had them bend out.
Yeah.
So I usually just go straight to it. But I use snaps a lot, probably more than I'm supposed to. But I ain't actually fishing cliches, but like out of curiosity, do you use a lot of like fluorocarbon or do you usually use just mono?
90% of the time I'm using just a straight mono.
Okay.
I've had bad luck with some of the fluoro, and I haven't really gone back to it. Because like all my rods I have different weights for braided line down to a liter for mono. So,
Yep,
and I found that the mono, it just tends to match up with the braid a lot easier.
Yep.
So I go with that there. And I generally, whenever I connect those two, I'll connect the two with a blood knot and pull them together so it's tied like that there.
Yep.
Unless I'm going, like I say, if I'm going down to Gulf Shores, I'm going down to Florida, and I'm going to be doing some surf fishing, then I will connect with a barrel swivel, because that, like I say, down there, you're catching a toothy critter, no matter if you want to or not, it's going to happen.
Yep.
So you're going to break off. So it's just as easy, like with that barrel swivel, to already have something pre-made, tied up, tie on the barrel swivel, and you're right back, back out on the water. But that's only whenever I go down there fishing, Alabama Gulf Shores or down to Florida.
Right. I actually see. It's funny about that is, I'm experimenting this year. So every single rod I have, with the exception of one spinning rod, has braid backer, and it's not even backer. It's like, I usually only run leaders. I don't run like a straight braid or straight fluoro or whatever. I run braid and then I tie it to a leader. But I'm actually going to be experimenting starting this weekend with no bigger than, like, the maximum leader is going to be maybe 24 inches. I want to see, because most of my bodies of water are not that clear.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my bodies of water are pretty murky. This time of year, they're stupid clear because that ice melt, and they haven't had a chance, or sediment hasn't been able to really establish itself because there hasn't been a lot of wind to turn up the mud.
Right.
But I want to try limiting how long my leaders are, because what I used to do, my system for tying leaders was tip of the rod to the reel.
That was your leader?
That was my leader.
I'll see.
And I only did that because then if I had to retie, I wasn't having to constantly retie the whole leader. I could just cut it down and work my way back up towards my braid. But that's as long as I ever ran. But what I noticed is the problem with that in a kayak, in a boat, it's fine. In a kayak, for some reason, it's just Murphy's Law. When you go to boat a fish, the fucking knot gets caught in the end of your reel while you're trying to lip the fish. Because of that length is the exact length that you don't want to be when you're trying to grab that fish.
Right.
So I want to be able to get the knot through some of the small, because I've got a lot of reels or rods with like the micro freaking eyes on the end, and no matter how small of a knot you tie, when it's bent down this way and it's coming around the eye, it's going to catch a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to shorten up my leaders so that it's down by the fish, so there's no chance of catching that when I go to boat them. And it's just a pure experiment. I'll probably end up going back. But the reason why I asked about the fluoro is, like, a lot of my channel is based on fishing on a budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I can buy a 300-yard roll of Maxima Ultra Green for $15.
Yeah.
If I want to buy fluoro, I'm looking at 30.
Yes.
Or 25 minimum for 100 yards. And I'm only using it for leader. So I don't... There's, I guess, probably jerk baits probably are the exception. You're supposed to use fluoro with jerk baits because of the way it, like, doesn't pull down on the line or whatever. But I honestly have not personally seen a major difference between using one or the other. And I'm asking everybody that fishes, because you see all these guys that are like, oh, you need to use a 8-pound fluoro with a braid, and you need to use fluoro with this bait because of this reason. And I'm like, do you?
See, I haven't had, like I say, I haven't had much luck with it, and I've only used it a handful of times. And I honestly can't really say I gave it a good try. I used it, I didn't like it, and I did buy it again. And then it was like, oh, I'll try. This was the only thing they had in stock, so I bought it. And I'm like, you know what? I didn't like it. I'm not going to go back to it. But like everything that my leaders are generally between 36 and 48 inches. That's the only leaders that I always use.
Okay.
I mean, it don't matter if I'm, like I say, if I'm surf fishing down on the Gulf, or if I'm trout fishing up. I mean, trout fishing up here, I'm using maybe 20-inch leader at best here now. So, it's mine are very, very, very short.
See, I had this weird delusion, and I've come to realize it's probably because I had the winter to think about this crap. So, like, I used to do almost 7-foot leader, with a crankbait. Why?
Yeah. See,
It's a moving bait. Like, I'm thinking about it. Like, I'm looking back at it and I'm going, why? Like, don't get me wrong. I like having a little leader on a crankbait, but I actually like mono better because of that stretch. Because when I hit them, I'm not going to bend that treble out because I'm using pretty much 30-pound braid across the board. Because that's the other thing. I bought like freaking every size braid you could think of last year. I was just playing with stuff, you know. Like, honestly, I'll admit I had a credit card to a particular tackle store.
And we discussed this, you and I. We've discussed this one.
And I spent way too much money, so I was buying crap that I shouldn't buy.
Right.
And this year I consolidated. So literally every rod I have has just Cast King braid that I bought just because I wanted to try Cast King because it was cheap. And I'm going to try shortening up my leaders. I'm going to do fluoro in certain instances, like drop shotting. I kind of like fluoro just because of the nature of that type of fishing. But I think everything else I'm just going to run. And Maxima Ultra Green, honestly, the reason why I do that is because it's actually technically a copolymer.
Right.
It's not fluoro and it's not mono, but it's still got enough stretch where when you hit them with a treble hook, you're not going to bend it out with that braid. It gives that like a little bit of elasticity. Because I tend to, anybody who watches my videos, like, hook sets are free and I get my money's worth on the times. Like, I've actually hit fish so hard, I've actually smacked them off the side of my kayak.
Right.
Like, I pulled like Zoom horny toads. I've hit them so hard that they're coming. They got no choice. I hit a 12-incher one day and he literally just
He was
smacked in the side of my kayak. Like, pretty sure I killed the fish. Like, I don't think he survived it. But I tend to just be a little bit, even with my like spinning rod, I realized watching my footage that like I'm literally giving it the heave ho with a freaking wacky rig for no reason other than I just like setting the hook hard. So I've got to like buffer that a little bit sometimes because one of my favorite springtime baits, and probably works really good down by you too, and especially if you do a lot of trout fishing, so is like Mepps inline spinners.
Oh yeah,
Old school Mepps. That's one of the early season baits that I use, and it's not a Mepps. Call me if you want to sponsor me because I love your baits, but I will admit your treble hooks bend easier than anybody else's treble hooks on the market, and you can bend them things out really easy. It's just the nature of that bait. And if I don't run like some sort of mono in between it, because a lot of times I actually literally fish those, it looks ridiculous. I'm fishing those on a casting reel. Like, I literally have a 6'7". I bought a rod last year and I love it. It's actually a freaking medium heavy. It's the most ridiculous.
For that?
And I'm using a Mepps for that. So it's a Daiwa CC80, and it's a 13 fishing Defy Black, but it's a 6'7" casting rod. It's super sensitive, super light, and you should see how far you can throw a Mepps spinner on that CC80. I mean, I could probably throw it further with a spinning rod.
Right.
But I like doing it on that only because that's the rod that I fish my swim baits on. And if I'm fishing a Mepps, I'm probably not fishing a swim bait because that kind of replaces that small profile technique. So a lot of times I'll throw it on that. And yeah, so I tend to, because I don't, and it's all because I don't want to untie my wacky rig. To be honest, that's the reason why I fish it on that. It's not because I prefer using the casting reel. It's just because that particular casting reel, I can cut that off and throw a hook on it real quick. Whereas the wacky rig, I have to probably retie my leader again and all of that. So, but yeah, that's actually one of my favorite baits, and no one really. It's almost like taboo. Like, I've seen guys talk about it, but you don't hear about it anymore because everybody fishes like a chatterbait or a traditional spinnerbait. But dude, those things have been working for 100 years and they'll continue to work. And
I mean, I see them a lot down this way, especially like the guys like you said, they're using them for trout, and they've put tons of trout on the board for guys down this way, so yeah.
They use them for walleye too, but if you ever seen like the musky ones,
I have seen the muskie. There's a muskie club in Ohio,
they're
and
huge. Like
yeah,
it's like throwing. I don't even know what. Like it's. I mean, literally, the blade on them is like that big around, and they throw them for muskie up here, like or not muskie, but pike. But I've heard them using them for muskie too, and I'm like, they actually make. I didn't know this, and I found this last year. They make what's called an extra deep Meps, and it has like a quarter-ounce weight on it, and
okay.
it's below where the blade hits. So it's actually got like a little weight, it's like an inline weight, kind of like a bullet weight basically, but it's right on the wire with the, and it's made to get deeper, because that's the one thing about those things, they don't go very deep no matter how long you wait to cast them.
See, now if I'm not mistaken, if I looked in my tackle box that I carry, uh, I'm pretty sure I got two of those MEPS uh, spinners for muskie that I either bought and I was going to fish with those guys in Ohio at the muskie thing, or I won them, and they're just like really cool to have, because it's got like
Yep.
the big bucktail thing on the back
Yep.
of it. And it's got
Yeah.
the looks like a number one treble hook on it, and then it's got the big blade in the front. I'm pretty sure I think I got an orange one and maybe a black one. And I think I either bought them to fish with that muskie club and never really made it out, or they were doing a raft when I may have won them through one of their raffles.
I'd
But
throw
yeah,
them
those
out
things
there,
are
dude.
massive.
I bet your spots down there, because of how aggressive they are,
Mm-hmm.
they'd probably smoke those.
We got some pretty big. Shoot, I just drew a blank. they're oh man, the straight bass down in
Oh,
Alabama.
yeah,
They are
they probably pound it
definitely
too.
aggressive. It might work on them there too, and they're big. I've seen a couple guys who've caught some down our way that are well over the 20-pound mark. So they would be
Nice.
aggressive enough to hit those there. I've personally never caught one that big down there yet, but um, I've seen guys on the Facebook chats that
Yep.
I'm in down that way that they have. So
I had Nate Shagnon on my show not too long ago, and he lives over on the Cape in Mass, and he is my goal is to try to piggyback on a trip with them, because they actually go and fish them when they come up from, they kind of come through the brackish water and they go up and spawn up in the Cape, and then they head back out.
mm-hmm.
So he said you can hit like schoolies and you can hit bigger ones later on, but they all fish that a lot, so they know like roughly when it's happening. So I'm trying to like work out a trip. It's going to be like a 4 hour drive for me to go find them, but I want to hook on to like a big one in my kayak.
Oh yeah,
It's two of my like bucket list fish to catch. Is I love the taste of striper. Like I'm not a catch and eat guy. I'm mostly catch and release, but
right.
striper are freaking delicious fish to eat.
The, I'm limited on the fish that I will keep. Like walleye is my number one. If I
Yeah.
catch walleye, keeping that there. Perch and crappie. That's my son was just out crappie fishing. We'll keep them there. And
Yep.
then when down home, I'll keep a couple striped bass. Uh, make some good fish tacos out of them there, man. They're
Yeah,
actually good eating fish.
they're
I don't
really
keep I
solid
don't
fish.
these trout that we're catching. I don't keep any of them. And we're fly fishing, and we use the barbless hook. So generally, we don't really kill any of the
Yep.
fish. The trout. If so, if I killed one, I'd probably keep it and give it to somebody.
Yep.
Um, but I just don't eat those there. Now I will keep like a steelhead at the beginning of the season.
Okay.
Uh, Usually a male. I'll keep one of those, and then we'll smoke them up and make like a fish jerky out of them.
Okay.
In actually, I call it like fish candy, like a
Okay.
hardtack candy. It's almost like a jerky, and we'll keep one of those there and put it in the smoker, and just one. That
I
generally does
got
me and my son.
I got into that kind of same kind of deal. So my parents used to go to Lake Ontario every year, and we do the king salmon fishing thing.
Hmm.
And there was a fillet station right there, like that. There was literally they had a fillet station for the ramp, right? But there was a dude that would just sit there and charge like $5 a fish, and he would fillet
Right.
your fish up. But he also would smoke your fish. So what he would do is he would basically he would give you smoked meat that day,
Hmm.
trade it for the fish you caught, so he could go smoke more.
Right.
Then he would just charge you for filleting the fish and smoking it, basically.
Yep.
So he would give you a bag of like already smoked salmon. And I don't like salmon. I hate salmon. But smoked salmon, it gets rid of that gamey
Right.
taste. It gets rid of the oils and all that. And like you said, it kind of is like beef jerky.
Hmm.
That'd be interesting. I have a coworker that insists that I need to eat a bass this year because she eats like a ton of bass out of the lake, which is just to be spiteful. I literally sent her a link that like the fish and game department says you shouldn't eat more than 8 ounces a month here because we have PCBs and mercury and
Mercury. Yes.
so. But like I think if I'm gonna do it, it's gonna have to be early because they do get like worms a lot here. So at the end of the season when they're not cold water, it starts to get a little sketchy on what you're eating.
Right.
But my wife loves perch, but I never like. I'm always in a kayak, and I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do with them to get them home? I'm like, I'm not. I don't usually bring a big cooler with me, so I'm not gonna be like throwing a bunch of perch in a cooler in my kayak and trying to keep them from rotting while I'm fishing
I
for 12
never
hours.
have, but if I'm going out to perch fish or going out to crappie fish, then I will make sure I take something, either a stringer to put them on,
Yep.
or have it definitely have a cooler back at my truck whenever I get back there. But if I catch one here or there, like you said, you accidentally
Yeah.
catch one, I don't keep it. I mean,
No.
unless it's a walleye and I know it's going to be good eat and I'm going to take it home that night, I'll
Right.
figure out something
Yep.
somehow to keep it and take it home with me that day. But there's a couple of lakes back here in Pennsylvania and Ohio where there are walleye, and I'll be pre-fishing, and I've caught quite a few walleye pre-fishing.
Yep.
And you release it, and you're like, I'm not going to catch any more. That was just a one-time deal.
Right.
Next thing you know, you're 4 deep in it, and you're like, man, I could have had a heck of a meal going right now. I would have been limited out.
See, what happened here is fishermen pretty much eradicated them here.
Really,
Yeah,
man.
so it got to the point where a lot of places you have a limit of one.
Oh, okay.
So we actually have, so I'm going to be doing and actually, dude, I know me and you were talking about you coming up here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be July. I'm having Bobby Roast Beef from Jigs and Bigs come up, and there's a reservoir not too far from my house that around the entire reservoir is national forest. So all the land on the outside of the reservoir is all state land. And we're actually going to do a camp out. So in that reservoir is a walleye preserve.
Oh, okay.
So they have a slot limit, but you can keep one walleye. But they have smallmouth, largemouth, walleye, and there's a lot of tributaries that feed into that are like brooks and streams that fill it.
Mm-hmm.
That there is trout at times in there, and huge perch. So what we're doing is actually going to be camping out. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw tents in our kayaks, go across the reservoir and pick a spot on the shoreline, set up a campsite, and then fish basically all day and then go back to the campsite and hang out.
All right. Yeah.
So it might be something to think about if you want to come up and tag along on that, because it's kind of like a perfect little, like you can just, it's weird because you can't, in Vermont, you can't sleep in a boat ramp. It's like a rule, but
Okay.
we can fish all night. So they can't really do anything if I park my trailer in the ramp and then I'm camping on state land.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So
Loophole.
basically, yeah,
Loophole.
and I've actually literally cleared it with like fishing game and forestry service and all that's what people do. During COVID, you should have seen it. It was insane. I didn't realize you could even do it, and that's where I got the idea to do this. And I've been trying to get people that want to come up and do it. I want to try to get like a group and just
Right,
have
right,
like a
right.
big group and do it with everybody. What's cool is there's a wake limit, there's like a speed limit, so there is a big ramp, and people do bring big boats out there, but it's not a big enough reservoir where you get a lot of jet skis and stuff like that. It's mostly just local boys fishing and the occasional pontoon boat party, but it has so many different species, and you can literally just go up on there's a lot of places where you can just pull your kayak right up on the shore, and then there's a flat open area on the other side that you can set up a tent and hang out. So I'm
Ah,
trying to get a group of people together, but that place is a walleye preserve that they're trying to reintegrate walleyes back into Vermont as a general rule, and they
right.
put them in there because the perch are so big that they feed the walleye population.
Hmm.
But yeah, dude, we should definitely talk, because once I figure out that weekend, that might not be a bad weekend for you to come up and then come hang
Yeah.
out. And because it's something that I've been trying to do, and I think for honestly from the YouTube creator side of it, it'd be really cool content to just have a big group of people up there fishing and hanging out around the campfire. But
Oh yeah. Let me know in advance because I got to put in 30 days in advance to get
yep,
vacation time out. So
gotcha.
yeah, dude, that'd be pretty killer.
It's kind of a bucket list thing for me because I actually just rigged up my rowboat. So I have a 14-foot aluminum rowboat, just a regular deep V, nothing fancy, with a 9 horse motor on it because that's what Dad had. So I have to actually be careful with it because I can like do one of
Stand
these
straight,
deals.
yeah.
Yeah,
Look
when
like
my
the cartoons.
when my 300-pound ass in the back of it with that motor and the gas can, we're kind of doing this all the time. But um, because I have that running, what I want to try to do is use that. I'll fish out of that for the weekend because I can be ferry and I can throw everybody's tents
Put
and
the gear
camping
in out
gear in
there.
it, and then I can
Right,
drive it
right.
across and ferry everybody. And I can actually, to get to the campsite, I could just throw a line out and drag everybody's kayaks all the way out there too, and then we could go across and set up in an area and have an area to ourselves. So it's kind of my
Yeah.
goal.
So we were doing a thing back in Ohio. We were planning it out. We wanted to do kind of like a mothership out on like Lake Erie and have like somebody, we were gonna have somebody had a bigger boat, that we could all,
Yep.
kind of camp on, put our kayaks on there, go out on Lake Erie even further than what we've ever been, and
Right.
then kind of, fish off of that there. And
Yep.
so that's pretty cool. You're kind of like the mother boat,
Yep.
take everything across and
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I've done it before, so I have a friend that has a camp in New York,
mm-hmm.
and the way it works on this camp is it's on this. It's a public body of water, but it's a man-made lake, and almost again it's kind of that's kind of the theme here in Vermont and New York is that there's a lot of public bodies of water, but the only public way to get to the water is one ramp, and then everything
Mm,
else is not. Well, his camp on top of it is in a situation where there's no road to the camp. It's a four-wheeler trail at best, and
glorified goat path.
so there's a public ramp, which is just a beach launch on the corner. So what I do is when we go stay at his camp, I load up all the sleeping bags and the blankets and the coolers and the grills in my rowboat, and then I just shoot across because he's on the point directly across from this where this launch is. And then I
Ah,
run over there, drop off all the stuff, then I go back and I pick up all my fishing stuff, and then I go fishing.
right.
So I've already kind of done that, but I've always wanted to do that style of fishing because the one thing that I've always liked to do is like I always want to fish like more. You know what I mean? And it's like being able to just like literally fish till dark and just jump over on shore and be done and not have to do all the pickup and everything and be able to like get up early in the morning and be literally right there to be able to fish in the morning.
Oh yeah.
The only
I
thing
like
about there is I will warn anybody who's coming. Um, it's national forest, so we're talking potential for black bears, potential for moose,
I
coy
mean,
dogs.
the element of danger just makes the cool factor that much more spectacular.
So I
You
live in
know?
I don't know how it is down there. I'm sure it's pretty similar to here, but um, Vermont's there's I didn't even know there was such a thing as a carry permit.
Oh, so
So I'll have a 9 mil with me with hollow points, and I'm not really worried about it. But um, it's one of those places where I have a 9 millimeter bear repellent with me just in case. But ultimately, you're literally out there with nature. You could have turkeys in your campsite when you wake up. You could have, and they're used to humans because it's state land, and they're used to seeing so much activity that they're not really scared of humans. So,
right.
and there's a lot of that area is where the hiking trails are and the backpackers go through. There's a lot of there's literally primitive camping sites
Right.
scattered throughout. So there is a lot of animal activity, but in my mind, as a hunter, and I mean, I'm not
Right.
really intimidated by it, but some people might be. So, but yeah, dude, if we should definitely, I'll send you a message. I'm trying to plan it
Yep.
out. The problem with it is like it's like I can plan it out only so well, because weather.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it's one thing to go camping and fish when it's nice, but if it's pouring rain, I don't know if I really want to set up tents and go camping in the rain. But
Yeah.
so it's going to be
Well,
kind
there's
of
only so
tricky.
much you can control, though. Yeah, you know what I mean.
So, and that's kind of the plan, is to pick a weekend, and if it's going to be a hurricane, then I'll just cancel. The beauty of it is there's no reservations. I'm not going to lose money if I cancel. It's not like
Right.
a
Right.
campground where I have to cancel my site or something. I just tell everybody to meet me at the boat ramp and we'll go fishing. But
I mean, worst case scenario, I drive from Alabama to Vermont. It gets canceled. I got to stop somewhere in between there,
dude, we're going fishing either
and
way.
I'll
I
fish
tell you right
somewhere
now,
else. You
if
know.
we're not going camping, we'll throw the rain gear on and we'll go on the kayaks, and I can take you to 3 or 4 places in the same area that you'll catch fish in the rain better than you'll catch fish in the sun. So,
Right.
and
But we're
and
I would hit those places that you were just catching those lake trout. You know what I mean? Because I've caught lake trout.
yep,
I've just never caught lake trout from a kayak.
dude, it's
So I mean,
that's why I rigged the troll. That's literally why I got the rowboat out. So the rowboat was an experiment. I literally had this thing rigged up really redneck before. I had an entire PVC spread behind me.
right?
I literally had screw-in arms to put my cameras on. I put threaded pipe, so I put a 3-way with a threaded insert so that I could screw in a mount that my GoPros would mount to on the outsides of me so I could film. I could hold 6 or 8 rods in the back of this 14-foot rowboat, all with PVC rod holders. It looked like a regular professional, actual trolling boat Christmas tree rod holder, because it was one pole on either corner, but it had the 5 different direction
But it works.
PVCs.
It
The
works.
problem is I bought the big boat, so I brought the rowboat back to my dad's, and he, obviously was going to store it like you store a rowboat, and flip it upside down, so he had to take all the PVC off. But I got that boat out of retirement because I want to set it up for trolling, like I was.
Okay.
So I want to do it out of the kayak some more too, but right now, which is when I'm probably going to have the best luck at catching the lake trout, the where the boat ramp you launch from launches into Otter Creek, or Otter Creek as we call it up here. There's no such
Crick.
thing as a
Oh yeah.
creek; it's a creek here, but I'm
Yep.
sure it's like that down there too.
That's a
But
crick.
it's not a creek. It's funny because if I and there's a couple of brands that are Otter Creek Brewery and Otter Creek this, but I'll say creek there. But if I'm talking about the actual fishery, it's Otter Creek.
Right.
Um, I tried launching last weekend, putting my kayak in there, that's down the road from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And according to my GPS speed, I was going 2.5 miles an hour as soon as I hit the current.
Goodness. Good.
Yeah, so I don't want to use my kayak because I have to pedal against that to get back to the ramp from the main lake.
Yeah.
So, and it's only going to get worse because the way that is set up, everything in the mountains that melts and all the snow, it works its way into that body of water, and then that
Right.
body of water flows into Lake Champlain. So
Oh.
it doesn't get better, it gets worse.
Oh.
So I need to be able to get back up, so I want to bring the motor so I can do that. But yeah, that was I don't think I told you that story, dude. So I went
No.
to go, dude, so I went to go I was desperate, man. I wanted to fish so freaking bad that I'm like, I'm just going to go to the creek. I don't even care. I'm just going to go. I'm probably not going to catch a goddamn thing, but I don't care. So I loaded up. This thing's 5 minutes from my house. The boat ramp's right here, like literally right down the road. So I get there, I go to unload my kayak. I can't find the Old Town. When you mount your pedal drive, it actually has like a plate on the top of the kayak, and there's a bar that goes through your pedal drive.
Oh, okay.
And that mounts and snaps in.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost that bar last year at
Okay.
the place that I told you that I'm going to fish this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I found an old, you know, those like closet organizer, freaking like the fabric thing with like all the like little weird metal poles and the connectors.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I made a new pole out of one of those poles.
Okay.
I just measured it, cut it with a hacksaw, and just stuffed it in the hole, and it works.
I mean, it works. Yeah.
So I thought I'd lost that. So I'm panicking. I'm looking all over the place for that. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe I lost that. Found it, set it up. Got all my stuff set up. So the way they did this boat launch, if you could even call it that, is it's literally, they just basically took like a backhoe, and I think they just like dug 2 troughs down off the edge of the river so that you have a place that you can launch, that you're not just going to immediately take off as soon as you put your boat in the water. There's no ramp. It's just lawn right up to the edge of this trough. It's this deep. So you have
perfect for the kayak.
It's perfect for the kayak. So I get in the
Perfect for
kayak, I get everything set up, I get my cameras on, I'm excited. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to fish. I paddle out because I can't put my drive down because it's so shallow.
Mm-hmm.
And the Old Town doesn't have the flippers that will just fold out of the way. I literally have to lift the drive out of the water.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we actually cut a cutting board that goes in the hole where the pedal drive slides down, because it's actually a huge hole in the bottom of the Old Towns.
Right.
And we cut a cutting board around the hole so that it doesn't, like, it gives you something so you're not just having crap come
water just coming through there. Yep.
So my drive's sitting on that, and I'm paddling. Get out, and I'm gone. So I'm desperately trying to pull that freaking plastic out of there, spin the drive, put the drive down, and I start pedaling, and I start steering, and I go. Another thing that Old Town has, which is really inconvenient, is that the rudder is above the kayak.
Oh, it flips up. It flips
and
up.
And it flips down.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So to protect it, they give you an extra strap on your bungees, so you put your bungees over top of it while you're transporting.
Right.
Guess who forgot to take the freaking bungee off the fucking rudder? So I'm flying.
And
my rods are plinkoing off the fucking tree right there on the shore. I thought for sure I was going to lose a rod. So I was like, okay, I just grab my paddle, go back to shore. Fix the rudder. Got out just far enough, holding myself in place with my paddle where I could drop my drive. Get out again and start pedaling. And I'm facing into the current and I'm pedaling. And I'm in a fucking treadmill. I'm not going anywhere.
You're not going nowhere.
So I stop pedaling, and I'm just like thinking, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I just going to ride the current down? What's going to happen here? Start riding the current down, and I'm like, screw it. I'm done. I don't care anymore. So I literally tried to turn, couldn't turn, got sideways. So now, unlike a Hobie, I can't just turn my pedals and work my way back. I have to physically turn my kayak around. I can't. 3 miles an hour, according to my GPS, I was going sideways down this river.
Oh my gosh.
Get to shore. That's not even the end of the story. That's the sucky part about it. So I had just mounted that mount that I was talking about, right? The kayak, the camera mount.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I go to load my kayak. Again, this much water.
Yep.
And I can't back my trailer all the way up to it because it's a grass launch, and I'm afraid my trailer's going to sink out of sight. And I've already had this is like a 20-minute window of time. This isn't like 40 minutes, an hour. This is like the longest 20 minutes of my life. So I back my trailer down as far as I can get the front of the kayak up on the trailer. And for those of you who don't have an Old Town or pedal drive kayak, they weigh 100 pounds without gear. I've got 9 sorter boxes, 8 rods, a pedal drive, a 30 amp hour lithium battery, 120 plus pounds in kayak that I'm manually trying to lift on the front and get it in the trailer. and it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, screw it. I got mud boots on, fold my boots up, and I walk in the water and I get behind my kayak. I grab the handles on the back and I lift and I push, and my fucking anchor tumbles to the side, shifts away to my kayak, falls out of my kayak, causing my whole kayak to go ba-dump. So I instinctually grab for the only thing that's even like a handle, the freaking GoPro mount that's sheetrock screwed to my Milwaukee tool crate in the back of my freaking, and rip it right off of the
You did send
mountain
me a
all.
picture of that there. Yeah, you did send me
Mountain
a picture
all,
of
dude.
the bracket broken. Yeah,
Dude, mountain all just took it right off. I actually have it on footage. I'm thinking about releasing. I haven't decided yet because you just see me go, and then I'm just like I didn't need any words. It was just one of those like so defeated look on my face as I'm like, I just wanted to fish.
right.
So that inspired me to get the rowboat back running again because it's just got a regular little. It's like a Tatsu.
Oh, Tohatsu. It's got a 9.9 Tohatsu on it.
It hauls ass.
Dude, like you could just do a little bit of work to that there, and I can tell you off screen what to do. And it's like you take a 9.9 to like a 15 horsepower.
Yeah,
Tohatsu is like one of the hottest motors out there that you can like soup up and make a badass motor out of.
dude.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude, I can get that thing hauling. It's
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah,
and it's just a little freaking aluminum deep V, so there's no weight to it at all.
Oh yeah, you're screaming.
So yeah, so I rigged that up, and then I actually have a Minn Kota. I think it's like an Edge or whatever that my brother originally had on his kayak next to it. So what my plan is I'm going to use the big motor to kind of get me out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm taking the trolling motor battery from my big boat, and I'm going to run the little trolling motor because the only problem with that motor is that it doesn't do 1.5 miles an hour with a 14-foot aluminum boat. It does 2.5 on idle in neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's got too much balls. Like, it's got too much horsepower, too much torque. It's just not going to go slow enough. So I'm going to use the electric trolling motor to kind of keep speed with. Plus, honestly, I don't really want to get fumed out trying to use that little motor.
I don't know, dude. That's at the Tohatsu, man. I mean, that's a great motor, dude. I love it.
It is, and that's why I think I'm going to use it for zipping across, and then use the trolling motor to kind of keep it slow. Because with that motor, the only way I'm going to be able to use that thing is I'm going to have to run like drift socks or something to slow me down enough to be able to troll for like lake trout and stuff. Because, which again, I mean, I'll make them, but.
Right.
It's just a lot of extra crap to have to bring, but that's why I rigged that boat up. So I've literally got a fleet now. So I got the bass boat that I'm gonna eventually get fixed. I got the kayak for local waters and closer stuff, and then I've got the trolling deep V set up, which is a boat that my dad got. So this just gives you a understanding of my redneck heritage. The boat Dad got for free because he has a landscaping business, and a lot of his clients are like they own houses on lake, and they just wanted it gone, so they paid him to take it away.
And that works, that
the
works.
Trailer I got from a family friend that it was sitting out in their yard, and I just retrofitted it to fit this particular. I'm pretty sure it's actually a 16-foot trailer, and I just built wooden bunks into the actual. It's a regular like boat trailer, but we instead of using the wheels like you were supposed to, we basically bolted in boards and made it a bunk trailer. So we could do that. And actually, eventually, if I ever get like a Jackson Gnar or like one of those like 14-foot kayaks, I'm probably gonna get another insert inside of the bunks for that and just put my kayak on that instead.
I should send you the pictures of my kayak trailer that we built, and it was actually we got a 14-foot V-Haul old boat. I bought the trailer and the boat for $100, and I only wanted the trailer. I didn't care about the boat. Ended up selling just the boat for $100, so it cost me nothing for the trailer.
Nice.
ripped everything off of it, took it to my buddy's house, got some 1 inch tube, 1.5 inch tubing. It
Yep.
built frames, and then I built boxes because I liked the look of the Boondocks trailers with
Yep.
uh, the boxes where you can store all your gear.
Yep.
But I built my own, and I painted them lime green so they was bright as hell going down the road, which was awesome. And then to seal everything around the edges, I went and bought that Rhino lining paint.
Yep.
I painted the whole bottom of it and all the corners with that Rhino lining, and then put PVC mounts on top, and you slid your kayaks up on top of that. There, stored all my rods, my drives, PFD,
Yep.
tackle boxes, the whole 9 yards in there, and I could lock it. And then I bought some of that door frame gaskets that you put like around your
I got
doors
that
to
on.
keep the weather stripping.
Yep, the same thing I got on that plastic plug for my pedal drive. I did the
Mm-hmm.
same thing to make that seal tighter. I did
That
use the same crap.
Yeah, I used that door seal, and I put just a little uh, caulking around that there to kind of
Yep.
seal the water from getting
Yep.
in it. And then like you had to lean against it. I made the lock about a half inch further back than what it was supposed to be.
Yep.
So when you pushed it shut, you were actually squeezing that seal shut.
Yep.
So when I was going down the road, in the weather or anything like that, the water wouldn't be. It still got wet inside a little bit,
Yeah.
but not soaking wet. Nothing got destroyed in there, and we used it. I mean, I hauled that thing down to the national championship at Kentucky Lake. I hauled it all the way down to Louisiana.
Nice.
I mean, that thing has been from New York to Louisiana, and I recently sold it whenever we moved from Ohio to Alabama because the house we were buying just didn't have room for the whole
Gotcha.
trailer thing. So now I didn't buy, I made myself one of those wishbones to
Yep.
put, or T-bones, whatever they call it, to put in the
Yeah.
bed of your truck. So I
Yep.
made one of those there and put my kayaks in the bed of the truck and have the T-bone or wishbone, whatever, coming out the
Yep.
back. And so that's how I haul it now. But man, the kayak trailer, I have pictures of it. It was awesome.
Dude, so my current kayak trailer is a pop-up camper trailer.
Hey,
So I bought a pop-up camper for like $1,200. I knew it wasn't anything special. It was something that a guy I bought it from was in upstate New York. He used it because he drag raced,
mm-hmm.
and he used to have his wife pull that up because it was a smaller one. It was like a 16-footer, and he used to have his wife pull it up with her Explorer while he pulled the race car.
Right.
And they used to just use that to stay in when they went racing. So he didn't really want it anymore. To be honest, it wasn't in good shape when I bought it, but I didn't really care. I just wanted something because I was sick of setting up tents and everything, camping with the family.
Right.
So probably, I think it was 2 years I got out of it. I ended up going to set up the freaking, cranked everything up, and I went into the backside of the camper and I was like messing around with stuff, and I realized like, man, there's a lot of like freaking mosquitoes and stuff in here. What is going on? And the whole top had rot, like dry rot, really
Oh.
bad. It was so bad, and I didn't even realize it. So like the plastic material that they screw to the fiberglass to like hold the canvas and the screen
Mm-hmm.
had been like sheetrock screwed in like 6 places already, where they kind of like supplemented for places that had already rotted, and I couldn't get anything, staples. Like I literally used Gorilla Tape to get through the weekend, but it was done. Like it was like I could stick my finger through the freaking fiberglass in multiple places. It was that
Yeah.
soft. So it was garbage. So I
Sun
brought it to my
rotted, dry
dad's.
rotted.
So I brought it to my dad's, and I was like, I kind of want a kayak trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't even have the Old Town. I was still using like a cheap Sun Dolphin. But I was like, I kind of want a kayak trailer. So we're like, this is the perfect platform for that because it's basically a utility trailer at that point.
Right.
So he gutted it down for me over the course of a week. He just kind of went out and slowly took it all apart, and we brought all that, pretty much everything we could, to the dump and got rid of stuff. And then I went and bought Hemlock. And just like we have, there's actually a lumber yard here that just has rough cut hemlock.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty durable stuff, pretty cheap stuff. It's not really afraid of water. If anything,
Right.
it's probably better to get it wet because it'll keep it from drying out. And we ended up just decking it out with basically your standard utility trailer. I've got walls on the sides. I had to build like squares over the wheel wells because the wheel wells were, in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the funniest part about it, and the thing that I love the most about this trailer, is I left the step where you normally would step into the camper.
Okay.
So when I'm at the boat ramp on my passenger side, I walk around the front of my truck. I pull the step out. I never have to get wet because I can step up into my trailer from the boat ramp. I can back it right up to the water, step up, launch my kayak, step back down off, pull my kayak over to the ramp, and then drive away. And every single time I do this, I get somebody going, "You've got a step on your trailer?" And I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, pretty cool, right?" And then I just drive. I don't even tell them that it's a camper. Like, I literally just drive up on.
Hey. No,
Dude,
that's
it's
pretty
it's
cool.
pretty slick. It's kind of
Yeah.
nice. It's only that sucks about it a little bit is it does have that short like tongue that like
Oh.
a pop-up camper has. So it gets a little tight sometimes at some of these boat ramps where it's like a 90-degree angle from the parking lot to the ramp. I have
Mm-hmm.
to like really maneuver really well, but I grew up again, I said my dad's owns a landscaping business. So I know I
Right.
was moving the truck up and turning the truck around before I was supposed to be able to drive. So, driving a trailer isn't really that hard, but yeah, that's what I ended up doing for a kayak trailer, and it works out really well. And then what I did for rods, kind of like what you were saying. So those like Berkeley makes them, a bunch of different companies, those wall mounts. So it's like a plastic bottom with like little channels,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have the like foam thing that you slide the rods into.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I built a wooden box with those, but laid down horizontally,
Mm-hmm.
and those sit on the deck of my trailer next to my kayak. So I can open it. It actually has two doors with this regular outdoor plywood. It's basically OSB.
Right.
And I literally can just open up half of it and just stuff my rods in, lock them into those things, close it, and then everything's all contained on my trailer so that I can pick up and leave. But I get like the strangest looks because people are like watching me like put all this stuff away, and they're like, who is this dude and why does he have like 8 rods and this kayak that's ridiculously set up with all these GoPros and crap? And because up here there's not a lot of YouTube presence, like
Right.
there, I don't probably not down by you much either, really.
No, not in Alabama. Now you get down towards like Gulf Shores. You got quite a few guys that are doing the
Yep.
surf fishing now. You got Bama Beach Bum,
Yep.
um, Bama Saltwater. Bearded Brad. Those guys are like YouTube royalty. You know,
Now I think about it, though, I think Mikey Balls has moved to Alabama.
I
I think
may
he,
have.
I think he lives in Alabama, but other than that, and he doesn't even fish. He most of his content ends up being in Florida, anyways. But
Oh,
he drives down to Florida and fishes a lot. But yeah, there's not a lot of up here. It's funny because I actually look down on people like you that are fly fishermen a lot of times because they're snooty and they look down on the bass fishermen here because bass fishing is not as popular a sport in Vermont as people think it is because they think of Champlain. Anybody in the bass world thinks of Champlain as like the mecca of smallmouth fishing, and
right.
Ike and Ellie made it popular, and all these guys. You know what I mean? It's just one of those bucket list lakes. But to
Hmm.
me, it's 20 minutes that way, so I don't really think of it as that big a deal. But like, it's mostly trout fishermen here. It's mostly guys. It's guys hitting up the Orvis store and buying all their gear. It's the guys that are tramping through right now. Putting their waders on and going up and down streams for steelhead and trout and
And
trying
see,
to
that's
catch
why I
those
said,
fish.
me and my wife have always thought about coming up that way because of the
It's
trout
the mecca.
fishing. It is
Yep.
it's awesome. I made kind of this little, I don't know what you want to call it, like a bucket list goal thing for myself,
Yep.
where if a state offers trout fishing, I want to catch a trout in that state, just one. I don't care, just
Yep.
if it's one, I want to catch one trout in that state. And so far, I'm up to like 7 states. Nothing major, but like that whole upper, Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island. I'd like to go up there
Pennsylvania
and just,
ain't that far, where you
just
are right now. It's not that
hit
much
it
further,
down.
buddy. It's Maine's a drive for you, man. That's an investment.
Oh yeah, and as I said, like my wife and I, we talked about going to Bar Harbor, Maine, only because that's like one of the most popular places in,
Yeah.
in in Maine.
Yep. Yep.
But like we've talked about going, up that way, and definitely we definitely wanted to see Vermont and New Hampshire. Was two of the other places.
Yep.
Rhode Island and Connecticut, they're kind of just along the way. So what
I'm
we
gonna
would
piss people
do.
off, but don't bother with Rhode Island.
That's, I mean, it's along the way, so we'll kind of hit that there. But the two biggest ones were Vermont and New Hampshire.
Yep. Oh,
So
New Hampshire, dude, fly fishing.
yeah,
There's more streams than lakes in New Hampshire, and a lot of it is that's like their thing, honestly. I mean, it's funny I say that because I live in Vermont where the state fish is the brook trout,
hmm
but um it's funny because I refuse to get into fly fishing. If somebody wants to bring gear and teach me how to fly fish sheerly for the content because it's going to be hilarious because I can barely cast a freaking bait caster, let alone a fly fishing rod, but I would love to try it, but I'm afraid to try it because I already invest way too much money in this sport, and that is a hugely expensive rabbit hole. That is not a cheap version of fishing to get into.
oh, trust me, I'm living that now.
Yeah.
I'm already, my son has done this and got me into it, so I'm already 5 rods deep into this.
Hmm.
We got two vices now that we tie on. I'm constantly watching YouTube looking for
Yep.
what to use for April, what fly to use for May, what's going to be a good summer pattern, and I got rods for trout, I've got rods for bass, I've got rods for northern for
Hmm.
pike. So it's like, where is my head? But it's just so fun to me now. He has
Yeah.
shown me the different angles that I can do, and like I say, just that thought of knowing that I tricked a native fish into eating something that I tied,
It's funny
badass.
because it's not it's and to be clear, it's not like I'm being like, oh, I don't want to do it because I'm above it. It's because I know my mentality. And if you've been watching this live stream, I rigged a rowboat this weekend so that I could go catch lake trout. I'm a bass fisherman, but I'm a fisherman. I grew up a trout and salmon fisherman's son. My dad, the first day we bought kayaks, we got kayaks in COVID era. Like literally got them in March 2020. That's when they got delivered. We went to pick them up. I threw them on my kayak trailer. We were fishing that weekend. Now,
hmm
for those of you who are not familiar with the Northeast, there was still ice on the ramp. There, you couldn't fish the shoreline because it was still frozen and there was ice shanties on it. That's how cold this water was. We're fishing this bay on Lake Champlain because it's the only thing that has open water that we can physically use these kayaks. First time in my pedal drive kayak, I'd only had to sit in. I'm screwing around right where the boat ramp is. There's mooring buoys for sailboats and everything, so I'm fishing around them, thinking maybe the bass came in shallow, not paying attention. I look over, Dad's gone. Can't find him. Don't see him. Look off in the distance. He is 200 yards down the lake in 100 feet of water trolling for salmon in his fucking pedal drive kayak because his passion is trolling for salmon. That is what he loves, and he is going to do that, and he's going to find a way to do that no matter what. He is out in like foot and a half rollers in 40-degree water with two rods out the side having a grand old time pedaling his ass off. tried to keep 2.2 miles an hour so he can catch himself a salmon out of his kayak. The first time he was ever in it.
So the big question is, did he?
He didn't, and that's what actually is funny, is literally what's entertaining about it is he's the reason though that I got those lake trout 2 weekends ago. Because
Right.
he did the same thing. He went up the creek, and I was actually testing out a motor for my kayak, and I found out that I'm too fat, and between the extra battery and the motor and all of that, it was just too much. So I took it back off. So he is already halfway up the creek fishing. He gave up and he went out to the main lake. So I'm screwing around in the creek, like fishing a Ned rig, fishing a jerkbait, fishing a jig, doing all the cold water stuff you're supposed to do. Didn't catch nothing. Got out on the main lake. I'm fishing chatterbaits. I'm fishing lipless. I'm fishing squarebills. I'm trying to get that smallmouth bite that I've been trying to, I've been thinking about since frickin' November.
Since it ended.
And
Right.
I'm sitting there, and I when I got out on the water, see, I'd never fished this access before, but I knew where I was because I fished there with my bass boat. I've launched at the other ramp, which is the one that I was originally launched my kayaks at, 2 years ago. So I knew that there's like a pier. There's like a concrete pier that's behind it is a bay with shallow water, and it's got like the trees and wood all on the back of it. So I was like, if there's going to be, and I've caught smallmouth off it before, I'm like, so if there's going to be bass, they're going to be here. So I covered, keep in mind, in this trip, I covered 4 miles in my freaking pedal drive. I clocked it. So this is like a mile from the ramp. I get all the way down there. Chunky me, first time in my kayak all year, is panting, tired, casting, and I hear, "Hey, you want to take a picture?" And I go, "What the hell did he catch?" 30-inch lake trout, like just like that long, probably a little bit longer, trolling a fucking Rapala jerkbait.
That's awesome.
Like just cast to one side, cast the other side, and tool around. So I'm like, you know what? It's snowing. I haven't gotten a goddamn bite on a bass lure all day. I took my Berkley War Pig and whipped it off one side. I took, I want to say it was a Yozeri, or it was purple with freaking chartreuse belly, and off the other side, I have no idea how deep it even dives. I'm using 2 bait casters. My dad has like the actual rod holders, like the rocket launcher style ones that sit in
Right.
tracks. I don't have rod holders. I don't troll. So I'm like stuffing them into like the bars under my seat. So like the rods will hit my seat if a fish hits it. Threw on actually the Jigs and Bigs podcast. Start pedaling. Dude, I wasn't fishing 15 minutes and that Berkley War Pig goes off and it's bent right over. And I'm like, okay. Pull it in, pull in this lake trout, get a photo of it, decide I'm going to go back through one more time. And at this point, it's snowing. Like the water temp is 37.6. You don't get colder water that isn't ice.
That's crazy. Yeah.
There isn't colder water. Like, and keep in mind, anybody watching this video, don't be stupid and fish 37-degree water from a fucking kayak. Please don't. Because I didn't have a dry suit on. I'm wearing hunting bibs that the only reason why I was wearing those specific bibs was because they have Velcro straps. So if I did go in the water, I could just rip the straps off so they didn't turn into an anchor.
You'd like to think.
I'm not wearing like anything proper. I am doing absolutely nothing right in this situation. Just want to fish so bad that I'm being stupid. So I end up going back around. I cast that same jerkbait. Now keep in mind, I'm fishing that jerkbait on a spinning rod because I had fluorocarbon on it.
Okay.
So I was like, I don't think the trout are really going to hit braid. I feel like they're probably going to avoid that. So I casted it, and my freaking real bird's nest, and there goes the jerkbait that I caught the fish on. So I threw a deep diving one on, get out there, and I start pedaling around the point, right around the mouth where that creek dumps into the lake, because I'm like, that's probably where they're going to be. They're getting the fresh water, the mixing water, the color line. And I hook into a bigger version, like definitely probably twice, probably almost 1.5 times as long as the one that I caught that I sent you. I think I sent you the photo of the first one I caught.
Okay.
So the one I caught, his head was like, it was big. It was a big one. So I get him all the way to the net, and I'm giggling the whole time, just enjoying myself. Get him all the way to the net, and I have a bass fishing net, so it's this deep. It's got a small hoop on it. It's not designed for a freaking big fish. And I'm so excited that I stab at it instead of like, sweeping, and I hook
Mm-hmm.
the front of the jerk bait onto the net. So now I can't net him because the jerk bait is acting as a buffer, keeping the fish away from the net. And not only did I have him hooked weird, I had him hooked right here. So I didn't even have him in the mouth. I had him in the freaking gill, like under the throat.
Right.
And anybody who's familiar with a lake trout, that's not an area that's real, like you usually aren't going to get that fish all the way to the boat. That's a hard section of their body. So again, giving advice that no one should ever do, but I did it, is I grabbed the freaking jerk bait to pull the fish into my boat because I can't get the net out of the water because it's hooked to the jerk bait, and the fish is on the treble, and the treble is like this, so I can't lip him or gill him because the freaking hooks, I'm going to end up with a treble in my hand. So I grab the freaking jerk bait and I land the fish. And this is why I'm getting a new camera, because the camera is here. You can't see the fish. The camera in front of me, I forgot the cable for, so it's not on. So I have the biggest lake trout I've ever caught in my kayak. So officially, I caught this fish. Get the hook out of him, put him in my net, and I'm going to put him off the side to get my camera out. The fish was folded in half in my net, so I couldn't actually get him all the way in the net, and he jumps in the water. What you hear is me going, "Oh no!" What I actually said, I can't say on this live stream.
Right.
When my dad came up on me, he heard me from the creek and turned around and came back with the motor because he thought that I was hurt because of the expletives that were hitting the
Right.
open water, because it was definitely like a, monster. I mean, to be honest, it was probably an average lake trout for most lake trout fishermen, but as for someone who's never caught a lake trout in a kayak, and it was a good sized fish. So literally the only picture I have of this fish is me with a jerk bait in my hand and the head underneath my armpit as an angle, trying to pull the fish into my kayak.
Wow.
So I want to go back and get revenge because I know I can catch fish there, and the
Mm-hmm.
water temps haven't come up much in 2 weeks because the water's been dumping in from the mountains, and that snowy, icy water has been coming down.
Right.
So I'm gonna definitely try to. I'm. It's funny because that's why I say I don't want to do trout or fly fishing. Kind of bringing this back because I've already literally rigged a pole with a keel sinker, and I've got another pole that's rigged with a Dipsy diver, and I've got other poles that are ready to go for trolling. So I've already invested in stuff for trolling. Granted, I've modified some bass stuff to do it. My dad went out and bought 2 freaking trolling rods to go trolling. So if I get into fly fishing, I'm going to have to get another job because I'm already doubling down on getting more species in the boat this year.
Right.
So I want to try to I actually have a buddy up here that used to be a fly fishing instructor.
Okay.
And that used to be what he did, and then he got out of it because he said he hated the fact that his passion was his job, and it kind of ruined it for him. So he
Right.
got out of it, but he wanted to, he's got some of the equipment. So like if somebody had the stuff and wanted to take me, I would love to try it. But like I said, I'm kind of honestly afraid to try it because I'm going to end up You know,
Going down another wormhole.
dude,
Yeah.
this is not a sport that is for the frugal. Like you got to spend money.
Yeah.
Dude, I've got a freaking order coming. I got an order coming from Gambler. I think this week. I've literally had an order come. I mean, literally, 12 baits. I end up, and the thing is I've reduced. Like I've gotten to the point where that's the rabbit hole that everybody kind of goes down is you buy way too much crap at the beginning. You end up
Right.
buying everything. You buy every color. You think you need 17 different styles of crankbait. You think you need 20 different rods, and then eventually you go, I don't need all this crap. But you've already spent the money. But then there's still like that one color or that one bait and if you've been fishing for any time, you know you cannot buy one lure.
I never
I don't
do.
even know why. I don't even know why they sell them in singles.
Yeah, exactly. I never
You
buy
should
one.
you should sell square bills in 2 packs. Any hard bait should be sold in a 2 pack.
Exactly.
It just should, because if you buy a single bait, I can guarantee you. As a matter of fact, I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to catch the biggest fish in your life, or you're going to have some crazy experience with that bait. You're going to fall in love with that bait. And then one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to keep that bait and be afraid to throw it because they discontinued the color, they discontinued that model, and you'll never find it again. And the only way you're going to get it is go on eBay and outbid 12 other guys and spend 3 times as much as it's worth. Or it's going to be, and I can tell you right now where there's 3 of them, it's going to be wrapped around a power line or a tree or a stump, and you're not going to be able to get it anymore.
And see, that's what I ran into today. The one fly that we tied, that we tie our own, they were keyed in on pink today. And I think we tied 4 yesterday. Last night we tied 4 of them. And I ended up losing one. My son ended up losing one. So now we're down to the last 2 of this
Yep.
particular fly, and they're keyed in on this particular
Yep.
caddis fly that we're using. And I just tied it on, and I literally made like 4 casts. And I get hung up on this tree branch, and I wade out, and I'm in 3.5 feet of water, and it's barreling down, and I'm barely moving.
Yep.
And I just grabbed my line and started jiggling it to see where it was, and it snapped. And I gave my rod back to my son. I said, "Give me your net." I said, "I know where it's at. I'm going to find it."
Yep.
So I hand my rod to my son. He hands me his net, and I wade back out there, and I'm swooping this net in the water,
Yep.
in the water, and I find this stick. And I pick the stick up out of the water with the net, and I get it. And I said, there they are. And it was wrapped around there, and I broke the stick off because I wasn't
Yep.
getting stuck on this stick again. And I carried it back to shore, and I was able to continue to fish. I caught 2 more fish after that, but I just couldn't risk losing
Yep.
that fly today. That was what they're keyed in on, so that's what I had to go with.
No, it's funny. So what's actually kind of ironic about that is I actually discovered a friend of the show. It's actually these guys right here. I met a bait maker. He does hand painted like swim baits, jerk baits, square bells, lipless, like custom paints all of his own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so good and so detailed that you can basically send him a photo and he can replicate it and customize it the way you want it.
That's awesome.
So, to be honest, I have a lot less fear. As a matter of fact, I think I have one of them in here. Yeah. So this is literally one of the baits that he made. You're probably being from where you are. You probably fished a lot of bandits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So this is literally one of the baits he made me.
Yeah. See, that's so cool.
So this is a bandit viral perch. If you've ever seen that color.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So he added the blue, on the face.
The face there, yeah.
But yeah, this is literally a bait that he made me.
Oh, look at that. That's just so.
If you look, like you can
so
kind of
cool.
see like the scale detail. Like my camera doesn't do it justice, but like
Yeah.
you can see like the individual like dots that he did on that thing.
He does an
And
amazing job.
so I'm less worried about losing baits now because he's actually selling these inexpensively, and like that's a $9 bait with the hardware comes just like that. I don't
Right.
have hooks on or anything. And the other thing that's kind of cool about it is he actually told me, like, I asked him, I'm like, what do you use for blanks? Because I bought and like, I've done the whole stupid rabbit hole. Yeah, and I had maybe a lipless version of it too.
Oh yeah.
But that's a Mega Bass lipless.
Right.
That's
That's
not
the
a
blank that he uses. Is the Mega Bass
he does
blank?
not use the shitty knockoff 7 consonants and a vowel
Right.
blanks. He uses the legit blanks.
Right.
So it's something that, and I'm actually going to be talking to him on Thursday, about that kind of stuff. But that's something that I'm very excited about because there's some colors you just can't get.
Right.
And now I can just be like, hey.
Yeah, these companies will come out with a color that works, and then they'll discontinue it, and you're done. Yeah.
Yep. There's a couple of liplesses that have been out of stock since. So I have a lipless crankbait that I caught 2 fish on the same lipless. One on the front treble, one on the back treble, same time.
Same time. Mm-hmm.
And I've got 1 left.
Ooh.
And according to Tackle Warehouse, I've got till August 8th before they're in stock again. And it's been like that for a year.
Oh my goodness!
So I bought another one.
It up for you though.
I could send him a picture and be like, "Hey, can you?"
Yeah.
And it's cool about it is like I can be like, "Hey, can you do this? But could you add like the fin on it?
Right.
Or could you, change the color a little bit?" Or that's what's cool about it is you can literally call him and be like, "Hey, dude, I want like this, but I want like a ladder back, or I want to."
Yeah.
And he does he has jointed swim baits, he has jerk baits, he has the big swim baits, little swim baits, he does glides. So it's kind of nice to be able to get into that, and I'm kind of probably giving away a little bit for my stream on Thursday, but ultimately that's one of the things about fishing. Like I said, this should come in 2 packs because if you buy one, you're gonna lose one.
Yeah.
Every freaking time.
My backup has a backup. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is.
That's why I have so many. If you actually look at my tackle box, it's not that many baits.
I know.
I've got 5 versions of a perch color, and I've got 5 versions of a bluegill color. And see, we don't really have shad in Vermont.
Okay.
We have alewives, which are kind of like that.
We use them for catching striper. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the alewives have moved into Champlain.
Okay.
But we don't. The main forage up here is yellow perch.
Okay.
That's what the bass are eating up here. They're eating yellow perch, they're eating bluegill, and rock bass. Essentially is what they're eating. And crappie, the smaller ones. Once they get the dinner plate size, then the bass can't fit them in their mouth, and there's no point anymore. But that's pretty much what they're eating. So most of our patterns, most of the stuff that we do up here is your green pumpkins, your perch colors, your bluegill colors, and every once in a while, you throw a chartreuse
just to mix it up a little bit.
Just to mix it up a little bit. But I'm gonna be fishing in New Hampshire, so I have to get different colors because they have different waters over there. So,
right.
But yeah, that's the problem with this sport is I literally order baits all the time because I want to try something different. I mean, hell, I bought these because I told their work. You ever seen these before?
Huh? No.
It's called the Fresh Baits Scorpion.
Haven't seen that yet.
What's really cool about them is the way they design them with the tail.
Yeah.
So you can make it weedless by putting the tail back around the.
Okay, over the hook there. Yeah.
And they recommend you fish it on. You ever seen that owner stand-up head? It's kind of like a flat wedge head. So they recommend fishing that because when you do it, it rears up. And that's how a crawdad naturally reacts to a predator, is it rears up and back pedals.
Okay.
So it has a reaction like a crawdad, and they say to fish it on a Ned rig. I actually am going to try to throw it on a chatterbait. But it's stuff like that where I'm I've never caught a fish on a scorpion. So I want to catch a fish on a
Yeah,
scorpion.
it
That's
just
what
sounds,
happens in the fisher mentality is like, oh, I want to catch a fish on a scorpion.
that just sounds cool. Yeah, heck
I was
yeah.
on a website the other day, dude, and there was squid baits for offshore fishing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was like, dude, I wonder if a bass would eat that. Like, and that's the problem. Is like you end up. I actually tied up bass jigs with mylar
Oh yeah,
because I wanted to see. I mixed mylar with the silicone to see if I could get a little flash
yeah.
in with the bass jig.
How'd it work out? Or
It doesn't because I would need to use. So I'm just using the crappy rubber band style to attach the skirt to the jig head.
mm-hmm,
I would need like the magic thread and all that kind of crap to tie it.
mm-hmm.
So, if I knew someone who knew how to tie ties that might come up to visit Vermont, they could teach me how to do a little bit of tie-in. It might be a little easier.
If
But
you if you knew a guy, that's the thing. You got to know a
yeah,
guy.
but I think
And offering like a trip.
the thing about the Mylar is I think it would be a different because we've caught bass on Howie flies
Okay.
on Lake Ontario,
Mhm.
trolling at 2 miles an hour in 100 feet of water. We caught smallmouth doing that one time. We were hammering smallmouth when we were trying to king salmon fish
Damn.
because it looks like a crawdad.
Right.
I mean, if you think about like a Howie fly, a squid, and a crawdad
Mm-hmm.
in the water, there ain't much difference between
don't know,
those three
yeah.
items. They
Yeah.
all look kind of the same. And that Mylar floats more. It spreads out more.
Like it's
That
pulsating in
silicone
there.
kind of like mats down.
Yeah.
And sucks down unless you get the living rubber, the old school stuff. But the new silicone certs like they're kind of like tucked around. They don't really flare out that much. Whereas that Mylar will stay kind of pulsing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to try to experiment with that. I bought a bunch of it. Dad has a bunch of it because he ties his own Howie flies.
Okay.
But that's the kind of freaking rabbit holes you go down, and that's why I don't want to get into fly fishing.
Yeah.
Because I would end up with freaking my mudroom back here is already set up for making plastics. I would end up having to get a couple of vices, and I'd end up having to get another shelf to put all my stuff on.
It'd be another whole drawer. Trust me, I know what that stuff consists of. It's a whole drawer. Yeah.
And then it'd be one more thing for me to show my wife all impressed that she wouldn't be all that impressed with.
Well, my wife, she acts like she is so impressed. I hope she's impressed.
Being a content creator, and I know it, and I still do it. I'll be like, babe, check this out. She's like, what? And I'm like, watch. When my rod sweeps across the front of the screen, I use that as a transition to the next scene. And she's like, oh, that looks good. But I know in my head, she's like, I don't really give a shit.
I don't care. Yeah, I know.
But it's like when you're fishing, it's like that's the same kind of stuff. You're always kind of thinking about what can I do that you're not.
You're right.
You're always trying to be like that guy that catches a fish on a scorpion. You're trying to be the guy that's like, fishing next to the guy, and the guy's like, what do you throw? And you're like, I made it. I can't really tell you what it's called because I made it.
I made it. Made it out of an earplug. It's fine.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, dude, honestly, we give bass too much credit.
Yeah.
We really do. We humanize the crap out of those stupid fish. I still, to this day, and I want to try to do it one day just to prove my theory, I think during the end of the year when they're eating up, or the beginning of the year where they're eating up to spawn, I bet you could take a Coors Light can with a treble hook, and I bet you could catch a bass on it.
I wouldn't doubt it because I've seen trout lures made out of Coors Light, Miller Lite, Bud Light, bottle tops with BBs in them with a treble hook on there, and so I can see it. I can see it.
I swear you could just literally take that freaking can, just crush it slightly and do an inline through it and hope your line don't get cut and catch a freaking fish on it. Sometimes we give the bass way more credit and we think that we got to be way more sophisticated than we actually do. I mean, honestly, fly fishing is probably the only real natural looking lure if you really think about it. Like
Match the hatch.
I've never seen a fish that looks like that
Never.
in my life. It catches fish, but I've never seen something that looks like that that's even shaped like that. But it catches fish. A chatterbait. Think about, like, if you look at a chatterbait, that doesn't look like anything you've ever seen in the water.
Mm-hmm.
A jig. A jig kind of looks like a crawdad to an extent, but not really.
I mean, a Ned rig,
Ned rig kind of has its naturalness. Your wacky worm.
Yeah, all natural.
You know what? The other thing I'm kind of curious about, and I've never gotten anybody to answer this. Have you ever actually seen a worm in the water?
See, now that's something that I've argued about too, because up here, especially with trout fishing, guys will tie on a red worm, they'll tie on, or put on a red worm, they'll put on a night crawler.
Yep.
They even have these ones they're like, they're like night crawlers that are green. They call them,
Yep.
They're like bright green. You got mealworms, waxworm, butter worms. I've never seen a worm in the water ever.
Ever.
Even fly fishing, we have the San Juan worm, or it's pink and it's green and they're yellow, and it's like, I've never seen one of these. Why is this working? But it does. We caught them today on a San Juan worm.
Number one fucking bass fishing bait on the planet is the Yamamoto Senko. They invented it, so I'll give them credit. I don't use Senkos, I use other baits, but it's a worm.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a worm. Yeah, it could be a small, skinny bait fish, and they say it's a bait fish imitator, but again, I've never seen a bait fish that shape either.
Yep.
Like, nothing's that skinny and long, but they eat it. So, like, some baits obviously look like like frogs. Yeah, topwater hullbelly frog. Yeah, that looks like a frog.
And the best part is about that, they paint the tops of the frogs to look exactly like the frog, and the fish never sees that part. They're looking at the belly of it. I don't understand that part.
I'm so glad that you say that, because it's the funniest freaking thing. Is you look at that and you go, that looks good. It looks realistic. But if you really think about it, the fucking fish never sees that.
Never sees that part.
And the belly, guess what? It's black. Every time.
Ever.
The belly is 3 colors. I guarantee, if you go pick any 5 frogs at your local tackle store, you're going to have a white belly, a black belly, a chartreuse belly, and maybe a brown.
It's it.
Belly.
Belly.
Top maybe a freaking 3D printed model of the most beautiful frog you've ever seen in your life image that the fish is never going to see.
I don't understand it.
It's like one of my favorite topwaters is the Zoom horny toad.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can fish it weedlessly and I can just cast it and retrieve it. I don't have to actually work it, through the column. And it's the same thing. Like, I see some of these colors and I'm like, why? Why do I have a bright pink one? At this point, I'm dragging this thing across the lily pads. They can't even see it. They're just watching the lily pads move and they're tracking that movement. And then and I know this because I miss more fish than I catch on those things, because the bass just shamoos and misses it entirely because I moved it too fast. And where he thought it was going to be, it was not, and they just completely miss it because they're looking at like echolocation. They're just basically like, oh, that pad moved, kill it.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many baits like that. Like the same thing with whopper ploppers and choppos. It's the same thing. Most of them have like a solid color belly, and then they have a pretty top. But
yeah.
Fish never see it.
Fish never see that part.
So flies are kind of the same way, though. Actually, really, you see some flies. Like, the thing about a fly, though, is like the whole construction of that's what makes it like have action, right? When you tie your own.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a world that I see. I'm already like, I wonder how I would.
And the material that you use, you got like you were saying, like you use like a marabou, and it's underwater and it's kind of pulsating. It doesn't stick together. Right. The flies that we tie right now, we're using out of a coffee bean bag. We use the burlap, and you brush the hairs down out of that there, and it seems to trap, you know, a little bit more air in that burlap. So whenever you're pouring it, it's making a little bit more, you know, bubble action underneath the water. It's
Yep.
releasing it, and it's just different things like that there that are, you know, intriguing to me.
See, this,
It's the little things.
dude, it's not good. That's the problem, though.
It
So
it is.
it's not good, dude, because it's like the problem is that you want to catch the way fishing progression works is the same for everybody. It starts out with you're just happy to catch fish. Then you want to catch a lot of fish. Doesn't matter what species, you want to catch a lot of them. But then you start niching down, and then you're like, okay, so how do I get the biggest goddamn fish in this body of water? How do I do that?
Hmm.
And unfortunately, the way to do that is to be different and to have just like you have to have this like killer instinct, and you have to like want it, because I it's not even bragging, but I have bodies of water that I can go catch fish tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
I know there's fish there. They're probably going to be small. I'm only going to catch a couple because the water temps are really low. But in the summertime, there's bodies of water where if I want to make a video about catching fish and using a technique, I call them my R&D lakes. Like there's so many bass in them that I know I can go there and catch fish.
Hmm.
I don't fish them that much because I can't get 5-pounders out of there. You know what I mean? It's like
Oh yeah.
I can't get the quality of fish that gets my heart racing, that makes me freak out and embarrass myself on camera because I'm so excited about this little green fish that I just caught.
Right.
And that's the problem with it, is once you get to a certain level, and I'm not saying it's bad to want to catch numbers, and it's bad, like everybody has their own journey with fishing. It's just you end up getting to a point where you're like so freaking tuned in that while I'm at work, I'm thinking, okay, so when I go fishing on Saturday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this point. I'm going to use this bait. Like I'm freaking planning this out on Tuesday
Oh,
for a
trust me.
Saturday trip. You know what I mean? Like it's
I've been
just,
planning this trip for 2 months, just hoping that the water was going to be exactly how I wanted it,
yep,
so I can walk all this stretch of creek that I'm going to be on. You
yep,
know.
yep.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it's worse when you do tournaments.
Oh yeah.
Dude, tournaments, the problem with tournaments is, so I'm a highly competitive person. Like I am, in my opinion, I'm a fun person to go fun fishing with because I'm very much like I am on this live stream when I'm fishing. I don't shut up. I constantly talk, and I try to entertain people. That's like my mentality, right?
Hmm.
When I'm tournament fishing, you probably would want to punch me in the face because I am like, by the time I've gotten to that lake, I already can tell you where I'm at, how deep it is without looking at my fish finder. I've studied that lake up and down. I'm probably still going to lose, and then I'm going to be pissed off because I didn't do the one thing that I thought of that I should have done on the way home. But I'm literally hyper competitive. And the problem is when I catch that fish, I have like a freaking Mike Iaconelli reaction
Yeah, that's
because you're
me.
like, I got one. Like yeah, like it's the biggest fish you've ever seen. I don't know why. It doesn't even have to be that big a fish, but when you catch that first fish in a tournament, you're like, your heart starts, it's like buck fever
Mm,
all over again. You know what I mean? And it's
right.
just like, but I chased that because I was a jock in high school. I did sports a lot, and I was that guy that did, we used to do spring training in the freaking gym. We made a deal with the janitor to let us into school early, and we would go in the gym and do spring training. It wasn't part of the coaches or anything. We just did it because we wanted to, and then we would go shower in the locker room and go to class.
Right.
Like that was my mentality, but now I've transitioned that into bass fishing. And it's the problem is when I go out fishing, now that I'm a content creator, I have content that I'm thinking of making, but then I'm also like setting a goal. Like I want to try to figure out a jerk bait, or I want to try to figure out a spinnerbait. I've never caught a fish on spinnerbait.
Really? Oh
Not a
man.
single one. I've caught an inline spinner, yes. Traditional spinnerbait.
Hmm.
The only fish I've ever caught in a jerk bait is trolling it. Never caught it actually jerking a jerk bait.
Hmm.
Saturday, so I was saying planning it out. I have 3 6 cents provokes in my truck. I've got a Berkeley Stunna in my truck. I've got some Rapala Huskies in there, and it's a 12-foot deep lake. So those 3 to 6 foot diving suspending jerk baits are right in that perfect halfway down zone where that water quality is going to be good and the water temperature is going to be good. And I'm literally committing like 2 hours where I'm going to come home with a sore arm, but I'm going to fish a fucking jerk bait for 2 hours straight and figure it out. And that's the only problem is like I get in these modes where I'm going to catch a fish on this bait.
Right.
And that's why I want to do that camp out, because I get in that mode and then I'm like, oh crap. Like I'll get a call from my wife, and I'm sure you've had this too. Fun fishing, I'll get that call like, you coming home? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I probably should start heading towards the ramp, huh? Because it's almost dark at this point, and I've got to figure out how to get home in the dark with my headlamp now. But I lose track. Like I'll be out there. I'll leave my house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I won't see my wife again until dark.
Oh yeah. Been done that
Not
1,000
uncommon.
times.
The way it works is if I'm going to a ramp she doesn't know, I send her the Google Maps directions.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell her my anticipated time that I'm going to hit the ramp. And if I have service, then I kind of check in with her throughout the day. And I'm trying to be more safe about it and like have a planned time, but she kind of knows.
I've already been in trouble up here like 3 times.
Dude, it's
3 times.
Well, and the problem is that where I fish a lot, there's no service. And probably the same, if you're stream, you're probably getting the same problem. You're not.
You drop off the main road where we're at. You drop off the main road 50 feet, you don't have service. Yeah, and it's like that till you come back up out.
Yeah, so it's like and the thing is that's I think also why I plan the way I plan, because I will literally say to my wife, okay, I'm going to leave the ramp, I'm going to go to the left, I'm going to go down to the inside turn, there's a bay right there, I'm going to fish that bay for a little bit. If there's no, I'm like, I'll break it all down so she knows where to find the body. Because that way she can claim life insurance and sell the house and move on and find somebody that doesn't fish and leave her home all weekend. But like I give her the game plan. The problem is the fish, and this is something that I say a lot and I'm trying to get people to understand it, is the fish don't read the rule book. So you can make whatever damn game plan you want.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to comply with what you think is supposed to happen. So there's been times where I've gone to a body of water and left that body of water to go to another body of water because the pattern that I found wasn't going to work there for more than one spot. But this other place has got the same pattern. So I kind of like try to do my best of making sure I communicate with her. But yeah, there's been so many days, dude, where I'm like, I literally one day I came out of a body of water and I had a little headlamp. And I have like lights on my kayak, but they only really light up like around me. I couldn't find the ramp.
Oh my.
I had no idea where it was.
Oh my.
Like I was in the middle of the lake and I'm pedaling it. I'm like, I know it's that way. I'm like, I'm just going to keep going till I hit shore. And I literally had to go till I hit shore and then follow the shore back because I couldn't find the ramp.
That you made it a bad way.
Dude, I've had that happen a couple of times, and I've got to the point now where this is the lesson that I learned is now before, and it's not something to be relied on, so I'll throw this out there. I leave the ramp, I get about 20, 30 yards off the ramp. I make sure that I can hit this point from any direction on the lake, and I drop a waypoint.
Mm-hmm.
And I mark it as XYZ ramp.
Right.
Because now I can GPS and go, even if I can't get all the way there, if my fish finder is going to die or whatever, I can pull up my map and go, okay, I need to head that way. And that ramp is, I should be able to see the ramp from that point.
Right.
Because literally I have fished till I can't see my hand in front of my face because I'm one more casting it for way too long.
Yeah.
And that's the addiction, man. That's the drug. It's just, I don't even know what I would do. To be honest, some days I don't even know what I would do with the bass in some of the conditions that I'm fishing in.
Yeah, like how would you land this? Yeah.
What am I gonna do? Like, and the thing is, sometimes it's like I do it for I tell myself it's for content, and then I'm like, you're not gonna see it.
Right?
You're gonna see black. It's gonna be literally black, and I'm gonna be holding up this silhouette in front of a black camera, going, "I caught a fish." But it's just there's just some days where you just get so hyper focused that you don't realize how long you've been out there.
Right.
That's actually for my tournaments in New Hampshire, and you've done a lot of like big tournaments, so you probably have experienced this too. Is like some of these ramps are 3.5 hours from my house.
Oh yeah. I mean,
So I have to drive. I have to get up. The launch time is like 7, so I have to
mhm.
leave my house at like 2 o'clock in the morning to get down there to pack my kayak all up, get ready to fish, get lines in at 7, 6:30, 7 o'clock, fish till 2, lines out, go to the weigh-in for an hour and a half, and then drive 4 hours home.
I've done that plenty of times.
So
Yeah.
I actually bought an air mattress that goes in the back seat of your truck.
Hmm.
So it actually has like a pillar that goes in where your feet go. And I'm going to
Hmm.
sleep in the back of my truck. I think I'm going to go down Friday nights
Who,
because
who
I've
was doing that there? With the guys that we were fishing with, maybe get a hotel room or an
yeah,
Airbnb and just stay the night before because it's just too much. You get a couple extra hours of sleep is far better than losing them extra.
I have left the lake fun fishing where I actually had to take a nap at the boat ramp.
Right.
I probably shouldn't say that because the wife walked in and she just thought I came home late that day. But there's been days where I've been so delirious leaving the lake that I'll sit in my truck and it's like, and I'm like, I'm not driving home because I'm so exhausted and I don't eat when I fish. That's part of the problem.
Oh, so I always take something. Yeah.
See, I bring like, I can't say, I bring like a Cliff Bar or like a granola bar or something like that to kind of like just top me off.
Uh,
And then, but I don't even if I do bring food, I always forget I have it and I end up not eating anyways. So I just don't eat. So I'm out in the sun for 12 to 14 hours I'm drinking water. I mean, I usually have a gallon of water and more and all of that, but I'll hit the shore and it's like you don't realize it until you hit the shore.
right.
I've definitely had like heat stroke and been fishing and not realized it till I hit the ramp and go
I've
to
been out
load.
on Erie a lot. You lose track of time when you fish a big body of water like Lake Erie. I've literally fished 16, 18 hours out on Lake Erie, and
Yep.
the only reason that I've gone in was because they started shooting off fireworks and it scared the fish. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, it's time to go.
Yep, and then that's the thing is you don't realize it till you hit the wall, hit the ramp. And when you hit that ramp, man, when you put like I notice it when I go to load my kayak. You
Right.
go to grab that handle and you go to pull that kayak up on that trailer, and you're like, I can't do it. Like I don't have the muscle strength to lift the front of this kayak out of the water right now. Like holy crap, this isn't good. So like I literally have like paracord and come alongs and stuff in my trailer just in case that happens. But like sometimes so that's why I want to try to like sleep when I'm fishing tournaments because I think I'm going to try to go down Friday night and find like a Walmart parking lot or a welcome center or something, even if it's halfway there. So that way I don't have to drive 3 hours in the morning and then
Yeah, I,
try to
I,
make it home.
I, I like doing that there. Yeah.
Unfortunately, around here, it's like I can't. From what I've seen, there isn't a lot of places to do that where I'm not going to get arrested for like
Oh my.
loitering or sleeping. Yeah, a lot of the ramps don't allow it. A lot of the even like the pull offs, like I actually literally have the tournament director. I'm like, hey, dude, do me a favor and find me places like. And that's the other thing. It's a redneck in me too. Like, I don't want to sleep at Walmart. I would feel more comfortable in the woods on the side of a road at a pull off than I would in the Walmart parking lot.
Well, they don't have like a group chat for that. That some guys are saying, "Hey, we're going to camp here, camp there, pull your truck
They
in."
don't because this tournament trail that I'm fishing is mostly locals.
Oh, okay.
So they're coming in from this is their home state that they're fishing. So to them it's just a day of fishing. There's a few guys from Vermont that travel down there because we don't have a trail here, so that's why we all go to the New Hampshire Trail. It's the closest place to fish.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is just trying to find. Like I actually literally am going to go to the first ramp is an hour and a half from my house, so I'm going to fish that one regular time. But then I'm going to drive to the second ramp for the next weekend's tournament, and I'm gonna literally not even fish. I'm literally scouting for a place to sleep
Right.
so that I can find a pull off near the ramp, or because if you've been in New York, you know what I mean.
Hmm.
Most roads, and it's probably like that down by you, like most roads around a boat ramp are like dirt roads and camp roads, and there's
Yeah.
always like that turnaround because most of the roads is 1.5 lanes. It's never really 2-lane road because they
Right.
only can make it so wide with the lake on the other side. So they always have like these places where you could turn around if you realized you're going the wrong direction, or you got to get the hell out of the way for a guy that's coming down through with a freaking pontoon boat or something. So they always have these like little pull offs. So my goal is to literally scout out the pull offs so I can mark them on GPS so that I can go down there. Because the problem is I'm gonna be leaving here still at like 6 o'clock at night. So I'm still gonna be going
Wow.
down there in the dark.
In the dark. Yeah. So you definitely want to know exactly where you're going.
So I'm gonna GPS these things so that I can find them and then turn around and you know be the weird creepy guy that's sleeping in my truck, and hoping that the bears don't try to crawl into my cab with me while I'm sleeping. But
I mean, that would just add to the story.
dude, that's the funny thing is I told some
That's the
I
story.
work in an office and I work for a tech support company, which you would never know by the world that I am in right now. I tell my coworkers that, and they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, I could sleep at Cracker Barrel or Walmart. They're famous for allowing you to sleep in their parking lot.
Hmm.
But my kayak is probably going to get stolen, or my rods are going to get messed with, or people are going to screw my truck while I'm sleeping in those parking lots." And they're like, "Yeah, but wouldn't you feel safer being around people?" And I'm like, "No, honestly, I'm going to be a lot more comfortable on the side of a road listening to the peepers and the bullfrogs and the freaking deer running around and the coy dogs howling. To me, that's going to be more comfortable than listening to cars coming in and out of Walmart all day."
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can sleep anywhere. Like I fall asleep. I used to when I hunted. I used to sleep in my tree stand all the time.
Oh yeah.
That's terrifying. You wake up and you're looking down and it's you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm in a tree. So, all right, we've been going for 2 hours and 11 minutes. We still have 3 people watching, which is impressive.
That's awesome.
So I'm impressed that people kept this long, but I'm gonna probably wrap it up here. Do you have any final thoughts or anything that you wanna?
No, I mean we covered a lot of fishing tonight. Actually, from fly fishing to bass fishing to
Yeah,
steelhead, lake trout, perch fishing. No, we got.
that's what it's all about for me, man. Honestly, the live streams for me, this was an excuse to talk fishing with people that I wouldn't like. I would never have met you without the live stream and stuff.
Right.
It's not like we would have ran across each other at the boat ramp because you're nowhere near. I mean, maybe if you came up here fly fishing, I might have looked down at you as one of those snooty fly fishing guys
Yeah,
that's in my way
yeah.
with my kayak, But
And in reality, I told my son the other day. I said, you're a professional. I said you need to dumb it down like your dad, and
yep.
just do this, just hold it out there, and I'm catching fish. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Dude,
So
to be honest, I'm
yeah,
envious of the guys on the paddle boards. Have you tried that crap yet?
my wife has a Hobie paddleboard. Um, I've taken it out a couple of times and I've tried it. I'm not a particular fan of it.
Dude, it's
Um,
it's funny because I've seen so many guys on like around here fly fishing on paddle boards.
I just,
Dude, I'm watching him and I'm like, honestly, I stopped fishing one day because I just wanted to see him fall in.
yeah,
Because
see,
he's like going to town with that rod, and I mean his board's moving, he's moving, he's like he's doing it like he's fishing in a stream in waders, not taking into account that he's on a freaking piece of inflatable plastic.
yeah. So that's, I
And
mean, I've
I don't
tried
know
it.
if I
I'm
can do
just
it, but
not. Nah, I did it on my kayak a couple of times. I'm not a huge fan of that. Even there's just too much stuff for my
I
line to
feel
get
like you
wrapped
can't.
up on.
I feel like you could, dude. I've done that with my freaking bait casting rods. I ripped the rod right out of my freaking rod holder one day.
Oh, yeah, I've done that. I've done that too.
I had
Yeah,
to catch a rod one day coming by my head,
yeah,
whip my jig rod back, and what? Or actually, now I hooked onto my jig rod with a freaking square bill. So I was like kind of doing like the roll cast, and I had way too much freaking lead out of my freaking, and I went like this, and I heard it, and I felt it, and I was like, and I ended up catching my freaking, you know,
You're right.
catching my spear that I was throwing out of my rod holder. And at that time, that had a Tatula on it, so that's like a, you know,
That's the one.
$300 spear going by my head. So yeah, dude, I don't know, but yeah, that's what you should definitely. We'll have to make some plans. We're gonna have you on my show definitely a few times throughout the year, because my goal is to try to do some recaps once the fishing season starts.
Mm-hmm.
I want to try to like meet up with, just do like roundtables and be like, hey, what was working for you guys? Because I'm always curious, like how you guys are ahead of us,
Oh yeah.
like season wise. So down home, like right now, you're in my country now, because you're in the, like, even Pennsylvania's a little bit ahead of Vermont, but not as far
Right.
ahead as home for you. But like
Right.
you guys are getting ready for spawn.
I mean, they by the time I'll be back down there fishing for bass here this weekend, and I'm really anticipating they're going to be up on beds.
Yeah.
I
Whereas
mean,
my fish are
they're just waking up.
just realizing that their roof is gone.
Yeah, they're just waking up.
Yeah, like if I catch a fish, it's because I pissed it off, not because it's hungry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll send you pictures this weekend. You know, I'm sure. I think we're going to fish Easter Sunday, and Monday I'm off, and I'm relatively confident they should be up on beds. So
That's
at least moving in, if not already on
right.
beds.
And if you guys missed that, I'm gonna repeat it. There is no holidays from March until November. There just isn't. I'm sorry, but there isn't.
With the
If you're
best part, the best part is I'm taking my son to Alabama to be with his mother for Easter, and she said, "When you guys get here, the weather's nice. We're gonna fish on Easter." So that's my wife. You
see,
know what I mean? That's my wife.
that's what I mean, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I told my office coworkers that. They're like, well, what about Easter? And I'm like, what about Easter? And they're like, well, don't you celebrate Easter? I'm like, I used to, but that's dinner.
That's it. Yeah,
Dinner's after dark.
uh,
I can fish till dinner.
we'll do that.
I don't need to, you know what I mean? Like for me, it's soon as that water opens up, there is no holidays until Halloween.
Yeah, see, that's whenever you get into steelhead for me. So I transition with the way the seasons go. I just transition from one species
Well,
to another.
that's why someday, I've said it on the internet multiple times. I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna keep saying it so people force me to do it, hold me accountable. When my kids graduate from high school, about 6 years from now, I'm selling this house. I'm moving into my parents' basement, and I'm gonna start looking for a freaking house down south where there is no off season.
Oh, well,
Because I would do the same thing. I wouldn't necessarily bass fish all winter. I would just transition to other species. Maybe
you
I'll take
transition.
up fly fishing. Maybe I'll start chasing walleye. Whatever I need to do to hit the cold water species. But I would rather be able to not stop fishing, just change my species, than spend from November till 2 weeks ago going, I want to fish. I'm like an addict. Like, I need to fish. It's not good. So
Yeah.
I need to do that. So hell, maybe I'll just come down there and just like fish around you or something. I'll figure something out.
Got plenty of places to fish. They haven't been iced up and locked out, so
Yeah,
plenty of
exactly.
places.
But yeah, we'll end this stream right here. Again, I want to thank everybody that's been watching. We've had a pretty solid audience today, so I appreciate it. I do have a live on Thursday. I'm gonna be talking with Chris from A Bay Lures. That one's gonna be a good one. It's not gonna be as much. Well, it'll be fishing content, but it's also gonna be a little bit about baits. I have a really good live coming the following Thursday. I'm not gonna announce it. If you look at my channel, you'll see because it's in the title. But I have a really big YouTube fisherman that I'm going to bring on, that I'm going to go down a whole another set of rabbit holes with, and probably have another 2-hour stream with. So want to thank you guys for coming along with me. If you haven't checked out The American Angler, I would kick my butt if I don't at least plug it once in this stream. Everything on this channel that you guys are seeing, part of this whole setup that you guys are watching, is the American Angler Outdoors. I have a ton of videos up there. We're actually looking to get some content creators to send us some videos so we can show a little bit more of what we can do. This video will be on Roku. This video is going to be on a website. It's going to be all over the place, and my content gets shared to more than just YouTube, where my information, my name, my logo, it's all out there for other people to see, other companies to see, and it's a great way to grow your brand. So if you haven't checked this out, hit taao.live. Check out the website. If you're interested and you have any questions, message me. Literally all of my stuff, as my name is down here. I can never do this right. Binya Outdoors is my Instagram handle. It's my YouTube. It's my email. It's all the same. Hit me up. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I would love to get your content up on our channel and maybe get you signed up for all the services that we have to offer. For now, we're going to sign off here, and I want to thank you guys again, and good night, guys.